All right, this is possibly one of the greatest hacks, or perhaps the greatest invention
in modern memory.
A lot of people have iPhones or phones, but not necessarily GoPros or anything that they can get a first-person point of view from their iPhones. This is my idea, people. I realized that my kid had these little suction cup toys, and they have suction cups on one end and the other. And what I've realized is that I can take this suction cup, stick it to the front of my iPhone, and then put the phone in my mouth like this. What I get feel free with my iPhone while I'm working. Check this out. Check this out. Boom. Okay, looks good. And I'm going down one of the most technical sections this mountain has to offer. Get ready for this. In the mouth. All right. All right. All right. Hello.
Look at this. It looks like nothing on camera.
All right. Hello.
Okay. Totally random video for the intro today. I figured I was going to start with either Joe Biden or the other one, Justin Trudeau. But I think a lot of you are going to be nauseated by the substance of tonight's discussion, that I didn't want to start everyone off by being nauseated or nauseous or repulsed at the geopolitical state of the world. We're going to get there, so I figured I'd start with something fun. That's on the third channel, Viva Family. I like the invention. I think I'm going to try to figure something out. If I turn the mouth side of the invention into a mouthpiece with a suction cup, sticks on an iPhone, boom. Okay, people, the banality of life aside, tonight's going to be phenomenal. I don't know. I suspect a lot of us are overlapping with Timcast. I was sitting there earlier this week watching Timcast. I'm watching the episode with an individual named Brandon Straka. Now, first thing I'm going to get out of this when Brandon comes on is whether or not it's Straka or Straka, if it's a silent A at the end. Listening to a story and about what we'll call persecution, because it's beyond prosecution, of January 6th. And I'm sitting there saying, I've been covering stories of what I perceive to be egregious political persecution of January 6th accused. And this story only rings the faintest of bells. We know about Jake Angeli, the QAnon shaman. We know about the grandmother who was pleaded guilty, paid a fine. We know of some of these stories, and yet I'm in the thick of it. I hadn't heard of this story from Brandon Straka. I had heard about the #walkaway movement. Remember vaguely about this story, and listening to the details of Brandon talking about this on Timcast, I was like, I've got to reach out and see if he can come on and we can discuss this. So we've got Brandon Straka. We're going to talk about this January 6th stuff. The #walkaway movement, an individual who once considered himself to be a liberal Democrat, who at some point decided that either they left him or he's leaving them. It's going to be phenomenal. Now, standard disclaimers: no medical advice, no election fortification advice, no medical advice. Super chats, YouTube takes 30%. If you don't like that, we're simultaneously streaming on Rumble. Just make sure that we are. Same routine every single time. Rumble has these things called Rumble Rants, which are the equivalent of super chats. Rumble takes 20%, so it's better for the creator, better for the platform, yada, yada. You know the shtick. Best place to support me and Barnes if you want to, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. I may or may not bring up the super chats because I don't want to distract from the discussion. If there's a relevant question, definitely going to bring it up. Questions, put them in the chat. We're going to get there. But we'll start off just by getting two right out of the way, just so we can see. This is a super chat, people. It's a way to support the channel. Although some people take issue with the fact that it's also a way to support YouTube. I read an article from the NIH Gov website, and YTube gave me a hillbilly heart. There's no rhyme or reason to it, except the rhyme and reason is that even if you read something in the NIH, if it runs afoul of the narrative, you're taking chances. Two steamies all dressed in a cheeseburger or crispy chicken poutine. I need to know fast. Crispy poutine. Boom, shakalaka. Okay, let's bring him in. I'm not gonna ask Brandon to wait any longer than he has already been waiting. 5 minutes, people. Brandon, I'm bringing you in. Get ready.
I'm ready.
Leave this layout tonight, people, because Brandon has got one heck of a backdrop that we're going to talk about. Brandon, first of all, thank you for coming. How goes the battle?
The battle marches on. I march on. I want to thank you for having me on. Actually, it's great to, I think, have any platform at all to be able to discuss the events of what happened. It's alarming that something like this could happen to someone like me, who is pretty well known and for many years was, a featured guest on Fox News regularly, Newsmax, OAN, all over, and that the FBI can come and round you up and nobody talks about it. So I guess better late than never. Here we are a year and a half afterwards, and finally people are getting a little bit curious about what happened. So thanks for the opportunity. And by the way, one more thing too, I just want you to know that for people who've been following me for years, they know that I very recently cut my hair. But you and I have the exact same hair. I
noticed it now in the thumbnail. I had you had longer hair in the picture. And I'll tell you something. First of all, there's going to be a lot of "Let's Go Brandon" jokes tonight. I'm sure you in addition to the DOJ upending your personal life, Joe Biden has upended your first name now. But I'm sure you.
No, I like it.
Now the elevator pitch, just like 30,000 foot overview before we get into the childhood stuff. Who you are, because you've existed for a long time in the social media space before the events. We're going to get to all of it, but elevator pitch for anybody who might not know who you are.
My name is Brandon Straka. I created something called the Walkaway Campaign in 2018, which is a movement for former liberals who are walking away from the Democratic Party. I started it in 2018 as a testimonial campaign for people to create video and written testimonials telling their stories about why they're walking away from the left. It has been an incredibly successful movement. And the original group where I created it on Facebook in 2018 got banned by Facebook in January of 2021, 2 days after January 6th, same day that they banned President Trump. And at that time, we had about 510,000 people in that group and tens of thousands of video and written testimonials, which are now gone because that content was all just it disappeared the moment that Facebook banned it. That being said, we still have a YouTube channel and things like that where we still have, I don't know, about 1,000 or so walkaway videos that we preserved. And we're going to be relaunching the testimonial movement later this year on our own platform, Walkaway Social. So there's much more to it than that, but I guess that's kind of the beginning elevator pitch.
And we're getting into it in detail. And we talked for 30 seconds before the stream. I'm going to probably ask more questions than I should. Leave it to your better discretion. I'm not going to push on certain things. I don't want to get you in trouble, any more trouble than you already got into. But I got so
any
many
more
questions.
Trouble than you're already in, mister.
Hold on. People are watching. People are waiting, looking for you to screw up, looking for you to breach whatever terms of your release that there are.
Yeah.
Starting from the very, very beginning. First of all, your last name is Strzok and not Straka.
Yeah, well, it's spelled Straka, just like you have it there on the screen, but it's my family pronounces it Strzok. To be clear, I don't care if people mispronounce it because I grew up most of my life with about 90% of people saying Brandon Straka, and the people who know me well say Brandon Strzok, and I am equally comfortable with both pronunciations. So.
And now you're born and raised in New York, from what I understand? New York State?
No. I'm born and raised in small town Nebraska. And then I moved to New York City after I graduated from high school, and I lived in New York City for 20 years.
Small town Nebraska.
Yeah.
How many siblings, and what did your parents do? Or what do they do?
So my dad is a cattle rancher, and my mom off and on throughout their lives had jobs kind of assisting in that endeavor. So at one time, my dad had a large cattle operation in what they call a cattle feedlot. And I'm sure that's probably something most people don't know, but in here in the Midwest, like a cattle feedlot is basically where, if you're in like a large agricultural area, a lot of people who raise cattle will basically have someone feed their cattle until it's time for slaughter. And so that's maybe not the most glamorous thing in the world, but that's, what my dad did. And my mom helped run the office at the feedlot. So, I mean, it was very much like a modest Midwestern upbringing. I would call us kind of a lower middle class family. Neither of my parents are college educated, but they're, they just were blue collar, hardworking people. And then siblings, I have one biological brother, and my family took in two of my cousins as well to raise. So I basically was raised with three siblings in the household.
This will be one of those moments where I probably pry more than I should, but if they take in two cousins, I presume that's because they had a tragedy or family issues.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm very much an open book, and nothing offends me. So please don't have to feel like you're dancing around anything. So my mother is one of 10 children, and her father died when she was 5. So my grandmother was left to raise 10 kids on her own, none of which were out of the house, by the way. They were all still in high school down to being a baby. And my grandmother was a farm wife. My grandfather, who I never met, was a farmer. And so the oldest of my mother's siblings left the house as soon as she could, did what I think she felt like was her only option. As soon as she got to be 18 years old, she married the first person who would get her out of that house of 10 kids, and went and had 6 or 7 children of her own. And it ended up being a very abusive marriage. And he left her, and she ended up breaking down psychologically. And so there were 6 or 7 kids in the house who were not being cared for. So my mother being one of 10, the kids in that were not being cared for kind of got split among the families, and we ended up taking 2 of them. So that happened, when I was little. So to me, they were just my brother and my sister, although they were biologically my cousins.
And when did you learn about that, and what was the relationship? I mean, we won't stick on this for too long, but I mean, I'm curious, what was your relationship then with your aunt, whose 2 kids you ended up, considering siblings? Did she ever recover from the breakdown and take the kids back? Did she totally disappear from the family, or how did that family dynamic work?
It's so interesting that we're even talking about this right now, because first of all, this has never come up in any interview I've ever done. And as we speak, that aunt is at the end of her life. I mean, they literally think that she might go today or tomorrow, or so no, she never really recovered. She certainly had stretches throughout her life where she was psychologically and emotionally better than at other times, but she's pretty much consistently lived her life under some sort of psychiatric care and needing some kind of assistance. And the kids, as they got divided up, stayed where they were. So my family raised my brother and sister from the moment they came to my house until they went through college, and still are, that's still the family unit. And the other kids in that family who went to stay with others stayed in those homes until they too went through college. And yeah, I always understood it. There was never a moment where I was like, what? They're my cousins? It was, it just was sort of what our family dynamic was. And it was always, I always knew those were my cousins, but I called them my brother and my sister. And that's just the way it is.
That's amazing. So I say small town Nebraska, and that's not to be demeaning or derogatory whatsoever. Like, you're growing up in the most beautiful scenery imaginable. I know what I think of when I think of Nebraska.
Yeah, so it's very agricultural, farmland. Everything is cornfields and cattle or livestock pastures. Certainly not something I had a respect for when I was growing up. I was one of those like very sort of ambitious. I am a city person. I like from birth, from the moment I could walk and talk, I was like, get me to a city. So I didn't have a respect for where I grew up when I was there. And now I do. I have a respect for the small town lifestyle, the people, the beauty of cornfields and cattle pastures and things like that. I mean, it is beautiful and it's serene and it's great. Especially I think after you go and you live in a city for a long, long time and you start to gain an awareness after a while that city life is great for somebody who wants to have that, like, that rhythm and that tempo and to be really busy and have that sort of adventure. But there's an emptiness to that too. Just like when I was growing up, I thought it was really empty to live in a small town. I think anything is as empty or as full as you view it. And so I view the small town life as more full now than I did before.
It's fantastic. And what was my question going to be? So when did you then leave Nebraska?
I left Nebraska very shortly after I graduated from high school. My dream was to be an actor and a singer, and I wasn't really sure which path that would take because I wanted to be a recording artist, and I also wanted to be in movies and TV. And my experience was in theater because that's all that was accessible to me. Like if I wanted to act and I wanted to sing, it's not like they have, a major movie production studio in O'Neill, Nebraska, where I was growing up. So the only experience that I had was basically to do musicals and stuff like that. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to go to New York because to me, that feels like that's where that's where I'll kind of find my way. I figured if I go to Los Angeles, which was also on the table, I also had thought maybe I'll go to LA right after I graduate from high school. But then it was pretty clear I'm likely going to just pursue film and television, and it'll be limited to that. Excuse me. Whereas in New York, I felt like I had more more options to find my path. But I mean, kind of ironically, I ended up just doing theater in New York anyway, which was not really my dream. I did a little bit of film and television, and like a tiny bit there was like 5 minutes where I performed in a band. But that never really was anything either. So yeah, I ended up mostly just doing like theater, and I left for New York shortly after high school.
And now, politically speaking, growing up, because we're gonna get into the transition from liberal Democrat to what the internet now calls you a Republican, a provocateur. I don't think I saw the word provocateur, but I saw some other unflattering words. Politically speaking, growing up, we think some people refer to Nebraska or Middle America as derogatory flyover country. Everyone thinks it's all Republican, conservative. Was it your upbringing coming up, and how did you get from wherever you started to liberal Democrat? And then we'll get how you got into walking away.
Yes, I mean, I think it is mostly conservative, and I think that a lot of the heartland of America is mostly conservative. But just like anywhere else, cities tend to attract more liberals, and so like the biggest city in Nebraska is Omaha. And Omaha often goes blue. So Omaha is certainly much more liberal. And the rest of the state is pretty red. And what was the rest of your question?
Growing up, was it a conservative household? Did you grow up? Did you end up rebelling from what you were brought up with, or did you always start liberal-ish?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So my parents are conservative. Okay. It's like, this is a joke I always make. So I think my mom more than my dad, always, she always says we just believe in voting for the best candidate. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like I'd love to know when my mom ever voted for a Democrat. But I think she says that just to be kind of like open-minded and fair. But I would describe my parents as conservative, and, my siblings, my biological brother was definitely conservative. I actually think he's become more liberal as he's gotten older. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that. He and I don't really talk, so I don't know that much about how he feels about things. But it was a very conservative atmosphere growing up, and it's something I definitely rebelled against because I I knew that I was gay when I was very little, and I also knew that people were not necessarily okay with that, especially at that time. And 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 then I tied that to political parties, and so that made me want to. Also, you have to understand, like, the little town that I grew up in, it's a very religious town. It's like a mostly Catholic town, and I went to Catholic school. We went to Catholic church. I mean, I went to, from my first day of kindergarten until the day I graduated from high school, is all Catholic education. And so there's not a lot of open-mindedness about sexuality and things like that in Catholic school. At least there wasn't when I was growing up. And so for me, it was kind of difficult to navigate a lot of the attitudes about homosexuality. And and also just, I've always been very open-minded. I mean, and that really hasn't changed. I mean, even as a conservative, I'm definitely very socially liberal, and I'm not a prude, and I'm not. I guess I can understand and appreciate a lot of conservatives who are like, do what you want in your bedroom, or whoever's bedroom, just don't talk to me about it. Okay, that's like, I don't mind sitting in a room full of people I just met and talking about sex and having a very open conversation and hearing about this person's what they like to do, or what, like, I don't know. I'm not a prude that way, I guess. So that's always, I've just always been very open and socially liberal. And so I didn't like being in an atmosphere where people, I felt like, were stuffy or judgmental or closed-minded about the more social issues and things.
So I've got to ask the question, because you mentioned it, and it's something I guess a lot of people always ask, like, heterosexual. You never even ask the question, when did you know you were heterosexual? You just know, you remember your first crush.
Yeah.
When you say that, you knew early on you were gay, is that, do you remember your first crush in the same way, or is it a childhood memory? Is it a feeling that you remember feeling different, or you just remember feeling how you felt and it was not what you saw as the norm around you? How does that work? What age was it, and how does that feel? What does that feel like?
All of those things, literally all of those things. So I think so. My personality, it's not really a surprise that I've turned out, that I do what I do, or that I've become kind of a public figure, very outspoken public figure, very, I guess, controversial for speaking my mind. And I've always been this way, always, since I was a kid. So as a kid, I was always very I don't want to use the word flamboyant in this particular conversation, but like, I just always was very much about, like, doing my own thing and not caring what other people thought about it. And I was very, very expressive and very imaginative and very outgoing and very playful. And so I would say, like, around the time, I mean, when I was little, like 3-4 years old, I always gravitated towards identifying with, like, powerful female characters. So, like, I wanted to be Wonder Woman, or I wanted to be whatever. Like, when I would watch the Saturday morning cartoons and stuff, those were the characters I identified with. It didn't really occur to me, or to me, there was sort of like, a clear gender separation where I felt like I didn't want to be the Hulk or Superman or something. I wanted to be like Wonder Woman. And I always sort of wanted to play with girls' toys and gravitated towards that sort of thing. And then I started having sort of those, like, little kid romantic crush feelings, like that, some kids have when they're little, like 5-6 years old. I mean, not like in an overtly sexual way, obviously, but I remember one of my earliest memories is being, I would imagine I was around 6, and I used to watch a show every Friday night called Friday Night Videos. It was on NBC. This was kind of like before MTV was mainstream. So, and plus we lived out in the country on a farm, so we didn't have cable television anyway. So the only way I could watch music videos was on Friday nights during late night for this show called Friday Night Videos, where they would show an hour and a half of music videos. And I remember being like 6 years old, and I think, like, I feel embarrassed to say this now because I've gone back and I've watched some of the videos and I'm like, that can't, like, what was that can't be true. But in my memory, I was watching a Tears for Fears video, and I was crushing so hard on one of the singers for Tears for Fears. And then I remember sort of having this voice in my head say to me something like, "Oh my God, you're gay." And I don't really even know how I knew what that meant, but I did. I mean, I knew that gay meant like boys who like boys. And I remember just like having this huge crush and being like, I think I'm that word. I think I'm gay. And then I also knew that it wasn't really something that I could talk about because people didn't like that. So that moment of realization probably set up a lot of my patterns in life that I still experience, of feeling like, I have to deal with things on my own, or just handling situations without help, because I just remember thinking to myself, it's fine that you are this way. Like, there's not something that, like, this isn't wrong or it's not bad, but just people don't like it. So keep it to yourself, kind of thing.
And now, I'll ask when you came out to your parents, but was it a surprise? Like, for anybody who's had close family friends who are younger, and you're sort of older, you can see demeanor, you can see preferences, characteristics, and you sort of know these things are coming well before the individual does themselves in some instances. I don't. When it comes to parents, however, they can either detect that early on, or they can go into denial if it's not something that they think they would be comfortable with of their own children. Which side of that were your parents on, and what was it like if and when you came out to them?
I would have to say that they definitely were in the denial camp. I mean, because even now today, like, if you ask my mom, she's like, we had no idea. And I'm like, that's whatever. I mean, you would have to be like blind and deaf and dumb to not know that I was like obviously going to turn out to be a gay person. And this is why I just, I so outright reject anybody who thinks that, people choose to be gay, or I mean, maybe that makes sense if it's a person who doesn't really have a lot of overtly, stereotypically gay characteristics, or, and they came out when they were like 25 or something. But I mean, all the signs were there from the moment I was like moving around and stuff. I mean, like I said, I identified with the girls and not so much with the boys. I was very prissy. I didn't like to get dirty. I didn't like to fight. I didn't, want to play boy games. I wanted to play girl games. I had crushes on boys. There were even like a few gay people who were on TV. There was a guy on Saturday Night Live named Terry Sweeney at the time. He was only on for one season in the mid 80s, but he was very, very, very flamboyantly gay, like extremely flamboyantly gay. It's actually remarkable that he was on TV at that time. But I remember I would just like gravitate towards all his gestures and stuff. I just like, I'd never seen anybody behave that way. And for some reason, I found it appealing at the time. And he would often go like this, like he would be like, oh, like when he would talk. And I kind of adopted that when I was a kid. And I remember my mom talking to me and being like, don't do that. Like, and kind of explaining to me why it was sort of off-putting. And I was like, oh, okay. And I think I tried to make an effort at that point to stop doing that. But like, so all the signs were there always.
But first of all, someone had asked what I'm drinking. I don't know why I decided to have kombucha tonight, but it's probably not a good idea in terms of caffeine. Did you tell them before or after you left for New York City?
Before, and I was 19 years old, and I don't know what the process would have been if I had really chosen to do it, and because I didn't want to, and I was really uncomfortable with it. But what happened was my sister just told them. and then my parents asked me about it. And at the time I was actually living with my sister. I graduated from high school. I moved in with her as like her roommate before going to New York. And she really sheepishly came home from work one day. This was after she had told them. And then they asked me. And then she came home from work and she kind of like tiptoed into the apartment, like kind of like looked at me like, is it safe to come home? And I was like, it's fine. We're good. But like, what the hell happened? And ultimately, what she told me was just that she felt like this was a weight on my shoulders, and she just felt like I think she wanted to release that weight from me. And I think she just felt like I don't know when you would have ever done it, and so I just wanted to like do it for you. And it ended up, I'm glad she did. And so that's the way that she told them. They asked me, I said yes, it's true. And they, I think that they had their feelings, but it wasn't bad. And they just assured me that they still loved me, and that it was okay, and that they supported me. And it was but it took a while. I mean, honestly, it took probably, it might have taken 10 years before it got to the point where we actually really talked about it, and that it really was not like an elephant in the room. It was like, that was kind of weird. Like, they knew, but for a long time they knew, but we didn't talk about it.
Well, I mean, let me ask, did you have any girlfriends growing up that would have allowed them to maintain the denial or maintain their belief?
No, not really. I mean, sometimes, like for prom, I might like take a girl to the prom, or to the homecoming dance or something, but it was never like a relationship or anything. And most of my best friends were girls, but they dated guys. So
and your friends knew. I mean, this is like the plot from Easy A to some extent, where your friends knew, and it was just something that your best friends knew not to tell your parents until you were ready.
I'd say that's true, but I didn't tell everyone. I mean, I only told like a couple of people when I was in high school that I was really close with, and that were girls, and they were really supportive, and understanding, and just normal about it. And they didn't talk to my parents about it.
Okay, this is context, people, and it's fascinating because it will explain, I presume, to some extent, your political leanings, but then also it's going to add some color to your political evolution or revolution. So you leave for New York City. At this point, your parents know you're out on your own in the Big Apple, and I mean, what must that have been like in the early stages? Say, like, you go there, you go from Nebraska to New York City. What's that change like? What was the life like? And what did you end up doing then?
Oh my God, it was exhilarating. I mean, so I had no fear, zero. I mean, I was so ready to go and just like take that huge bite out of the apple, and just live my best life. And so I got on a plane with 3 boxes. I stayed on a friend's couch for about a month, and then found my own place to live. God, it was such a magical time. I mean, and just different. I mean, New York was so different back then than it is today. But I found an apartment in like the greatest neighborhood. I had a roommate, but it was $650 a month. Which of course, is obscenely, I mean, that's unheard of at this point. And I was in the most amazing neighborhood, and I got a job at a very trendy restaurant, which still exists. It was a restaurant called Cafeteria in Chelsea in New York. And it's, at the time, Cafeteria was only 2 or 3 years old, but it was such a huge celebrity hotspot. And I mean, despite its name, especially where I grew up, people are like, "You work at a cafeteria?" I'm like, "No, I don't work at a cafeteria." I was like, "It's a really cool, trendy restaurant that they call Cafeteria." And I mean, it was just like every night I was meeting movie stars and music stars. And it was just, Mariah Carey and Alanis Morissette and Courtney Love and every movie star you can imagine. And and so I would go to work, and I'd be meeting every celebrity you can imagine. And then I would get off work, and I would go to the clubs. And within, 2 or 3 months, I would say, of regularly going to clubs, I became really popular. And so, I never had to wait in line. I knew all the door guys. I knew all the bartenders. And it was, at least at that time, there was a different hot club for every night of the week. So, Tuesdays you always go here, Wednesdays you always go here, Thursdays you always, and I would go out every night of the week. And it was incredible. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I know, 20-year-olds now who are like starting their own businesses and who are really, really focused and really, future planning oriented and stuff. And that's awesome. And I think that's so great. But I also, in this way, don't regret that I had this time in my life where I was just a huge socialite and, just like a nightlife. I was huge in the nightlife world in New York City for a while, and it was really fun.
I hope you don't mind. I outed your age to the chat, and I don't think anyone appreciated that you're 3 years old or 2 or 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, now I presume you're in this life. It's as liberal is going to get. I mean, I guess if we're skipping over a big portion of your life, how did you end up getting into I mean, when did you ever get political? And then what happened with the revelation where you broke away from what the dogmatic politics to which you'd been subscribing?
Well, I think that my political involvement was very limited before 2016. So really the only things that I really cared about that much were gay rights issues, which were hot button wedge issues at that time. This was before marriage equality. This was before, I mean, and it's so remarkable how quickly the world changed. I mean, almost like that. I mean, people often talk about homophobia today, and they'll say like in the 80s and the 90s. I'm like, it wasn't that long ago, you guys. It really wasn't. I mean, there were definitely in 2012, 2013, 2014, I would, if you were even walking through New York City holding your partner's hand, people would drive by you and roll down their window and scream the anti-gay F word at you or throw things at you. And so, that was not that long ago. And so in those years in New York, I was sort of very much on the front lines of, fighting for gay rights and for respect and dignity. And I think that a lot of my political beliefs were influenced by the entertainment industry, by the political beliefs of singers and movie stars and TV, talk show hosts that were liberal. I mean, they all are. They're all liberal. But so if they believed it, I believed it. I think it was just sort of the going along with the left wing entertainment industry talking points and gay rights. And then I didn't really care deeply about politics until 2016, Trump.
I'm going to ask you this later on, because the transition from you were involved with, the pursuit for gay rights, and I want to compare it to what is going on now with, the videos that we see trending on Twitter and other groups, seemingly asking for rights. And it's not, and some people feel that it's not necessarily about their rights, but rather about some form of indoctrination. We'll get there, because there's been a few videos that have been going viral on the Twitterverse. So you're 2016, you're pursuing gay rights, not pursuing, but rather you're involved in that. That's the important aspect of your identity, political identity, personal identity at the time. So I presume to you at this point in time, Trump is literally Mr. Schmittler in terms of bigotry, intolerance, and everything. You're at the point now where you looked at him and you literally saw a man with a mustache.
Kind of. I mean, yeah, kind of. Well, but there's a little bit more of, okay, so let's imagine a seesaw, right? Like a little kid's seesaw. So if the seesaw was like liberalism here and conservatism here, and I was over here on this side, Trump aside, I was already getting pushed to the center of that seesaw by other liberals, because when the Supreme Court decided in 2015 that marriage equality was the law of the land, to me, I saw this as a moment of great victory for the LGBT community. And I also saw it as kind of a finish line for us in the United States, which is not to say that, life is great for gay people around the globe. I mean, if anything, I think that should have been the moment that the gay community in America began helping gay people around the world who are getting shoved off of buildings or taken away from their homes in the middle of the night, and then no one ever hears from them again. But what happened instead is that as soon as we got marriage equality, then all of a sudden, all of these gender identities began springing up. And I started for the first time in my life hearing about things like non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, people identifying as trans who, I mean, I'd always known transgender people who were born male who transitioned into female or vice versa. But I had never in my life seen like someone who's clearly a girl and probably clearly a lesbian, but suddenly saying, "Oh, I'm neither male nor female. I'm both. I'm neither. I'm beyond." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And what I noticed too is that these people, not only were they new and kind of coming out of the woodwork out of nowhere, but they were really, really nasty. Like all they ever talked about was victimhood and privilege and oppression and black oppression and white privilege and gay male privilege, and they were so divisive and so nasty, and they very quickly became the voice of the LGBT community. I mean, it was like within a year, suddenly gay men, no one cared about gay men anymore. Like, and if you were a gay man, like, get the hell out, because your maleness seems to trump your gayness, and who has time for you or your privilege. And I just thought, this is, like I just said to you, like, I'm not kidding when I say even in New York City, in 2013, 2014, there were overt acts of violent homophobia that were still happening. And now, just like a year or two later, I'm being told by these non-binary people that I'm a privileged gay man and to shut up. And so I was already feeling like something was really wrong within the world of liberalism and within the world of the LGBT community. But I wasn't exactly sure what it meant or what it was or why it was happening or where it was coming from. So I just wanted to kind of set the table with that, because yes, I was a Hillary supporter, and yes, I eventually hated Donald Trump, but I was already feeling very pushed away by liberal people at this point. And when Donald Trump first announced that he was running, I wasn't scared at all. I thought it was funny. I thought it was a joke. And by the way, everyone did. Every liberal and everyone in the mainstream liberal media was not scared and not threatened. They thought everyone was laughing, and everyone thought it was a joke. It was like, oh my God, this buffoon from The Apprentice thinks he's going to run for president. It wasn't until he started gaining steam and got to the point where it was like, oh my God, Hillary Clinton might actually have a competitor. Like Hillary doesn't necessarily have this cinched in. That's when they decided to create the illusion of him being the second coming of Hitler. But me being an idiot and just believing everything that CNN says, and Rachel Maddow and MSNBC and the Times and Huffington Post, etc., I fell for it, just like every other person on the left fell for it. I mean, they came up with this great plan, and I always say, they sat down and asked themselves, how are we going to take this guy out? And the plan they came up with was to say, what triggers our base more than anything? Social injustice. We have to make him the most like second coming of Hitler, the most racist, the most bigoted, the most homophobic person who's ever run for president. And that's when they started going to his rallies and searching for little 15-second sound bites that they could spin out of context and say, oh, he called all Mexicans rapists, or oh, he wants to throw all Muslim people out of America, or he hates black people, he hates gay people. And they just relentlessly started throwing these stories out, and it wouldn't stop, and it wouldn't stop, and it brainwashed their audience. It brainwashed me. I was all in for thinking Trump was a complete and total bigot and all of these terrible things.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question, and it's not because I believe it, and there's no but to that. It is the it's the retort, it's the rebuttal to the debate. People say if you give an inch, groups take a mile. So people say, well, if we don't want to give anything back on gay rights. First of all, I don't believe this. I'm totally. It's not. I don't even care. I don't care, not in an insensitive way. People's sexual orientation, everything. If it's theirs, it's theirs. It's none of my business, actually. But people say, well, the movement for gay rights, why people oppose it so much is because they see it as the slippery slope fallacy that you're sort of describing now. Is okay. Well, once the gay community gets marriage rights, well, then it shifts to something else, and it's shifted into what we see now, which is the video of trans individuals seemingly twerking in front of children who are giving them money, and the argument is the same. Well, respect our rights, and then some people say, well, this is just the slippery slope to wherever. You've lived it, and someone's going to say, well, okay, fine, you got your rights now. You're gay marriage is recognized. We want trans rights recognized, which is the right to transition as a very young age, because that to us is as important and meaningful as gay marriages to gay people. How do you reconcile that? Where do you draw the distinction between what you pursued as equal rights versus what is now the 2.0 of what other groups are either co-opting or pushing for as their equal rights?
Well, that's such a great question. And I mean, on the one hand, I am so disenchanted at this point with what, the modern LGBTQIA plus whatever community is and what they're pushing for. And I don't identify with these people in any way, shape, or form. So it's sad and disheartening that they basically made true. I mean, because back when conservatives used to say, like, oh, we can't allow gay marriage because if we allow gay marriage, then the next thing you know, they're coming from your children, and then people are going to want to marry a goat, and we were just like, these people are so stupid. These people are so deranged. But it's like, that's kind of what these people are doing in a way. And, I mean, all I can say is that I don't believe that the people who now have the microphone in the LGBT community are really LGBT. I mean, I think that, like, I didn't know, even as a gay liberal back in 2005, 2010, 2000, I didn't know anybody who wanted to, and I mean, all of my friends were gay. All of my friends were, and like I said, I was very popular. I mean, I had lots and lots of friends, and none of them wanted to have some sort of agenda to educate children about sexuality and homosexuality. And I mean, we didn't really think or talk about kids, and we didn't talk about gender spectrum. No one talked about that. That was not a thing that was discussed within the LGBT or the gay community. And so what I don't even know where to go with this. I mean, it's like, what I think is that these people, I just like Black Lives Matter is a Marxist movement that has co-opted the Black community and kind of taken this microphone and been like, we represent all Black people, and this is what we demand on behalf of all Black people. That's kind of what has happened within the LGBT community as well. Like, I don't know who these people are, and I don't know who sent them, but I know that what they want is completely contrary to what any LGBT person I ever used to know ever wanted, which was just like the right to get married, or the right to be able to know that you could go work at a job and your employer couldn't be like, I'm firing you because you're gay. So I don't know like where this is coming from, but I think it's, again, just sort of like another branch of Marxism or communism, whatever you want to call it, that has infected, that is using the LGBT community as a Trojan horse. And in terms of like their focus on kids, it's really disturbing. I mean, you can't justify that it's bigotry or oppression for us, any of us, you, me, anyone, to push back against wanting to allow prepubescent kids to transition, and especially in ways that have permanent medical results. I mean, if you're putting kids on puberty blockers or encouraging 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls to have double mastectomies, that just gives me a chill to even think about. Like, this is really sick Frankenstein kind of stuff, and it has nothing to do with being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender.
What I found particularly, I'm learning things as I go along as well, and I learned a new term covering a story this week called a TERF, which was
trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Radical feminist, which was lesbians being lesbians are attracted to the female the female body, the female genitalia. Can never say that word without thinking of John LaJoie, genitalia, who are attracted to other women. That's by definition what it is, and what it means, are being shamed from certain stories within the community because they don't want to engage in lesbian activity with biological males who consider themselves trans women, and they're called TERFs. And and it's as though now, the Trojan horse, as you describe it, it pivots from equal rights for gays and lesbians to actually no longer respecting the very essence of those rights that the gay community, the lesbian community fought for, which is to be gay without harassment. And now you've gone into this other realm of it where now if you're gay or lesbian and you, by virtue of your own persuasion for which you fought equal rights for decades, if you don't want to now do this with a trans other, you are now the bigot within the community. I don't know how to make sense of it, but as a member of the community, what do most people think, Brandon? Like, are most people saying this is fine, or are most people saying this is fine, but the building is burning down behind them?
Well, unfortunately, because I do what I do, and I've been so outspoken in the past about my support for Donald Trump and my walk away from the Democratic Party, and the gay community doesn't have much to do with me. I don't get to talk to these people often, other than gay people who have already walked away, or LGBT people who've walked away. And then we are mostly pretty like-minded about this kind of stuff. But for people who are still kind of like sticking with the community or whatever, I don't know exactly what they think, or if they're becoming uncomfortable enough that they're like, this is really kind of not what I signed up for. Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, it does not really bear any resemblance to anything that has anything. I mean, I just saw an ad today that Nike put out, and it was about, being inclusive to, again, it's like the LGBTIAQ2S plus. And I'm like, first of all, that's way too many letters, numbers, and symbols for any group. That's just absurd. But it was like this really bizarre collection of people. I mean, none of them were like people like me, like just someone who looks like this and is like, okay, I'm gay. I mean, they all like had purple and green hair and were going out of their way to be as odd as possible, and saying how the one was, I couldn't even tell how old this person was. I thought he was a boy, but he was an extremely effeminate boy. And I don't know if he was like a little kid, but he seemed like a little kid. I don't know. And he was wearing fingernails this long and makeup. And he said that he was teaching Vogue classes to little kids to make, and I'm just like, what is this? Like, this is just so weird. It's so weird. And like, when I used to go out all the time clubbing or go to gay bars and so, I mean, they used to be filled with beautiful men who would go to the gym and build muscles to make themselves look like men. And now it's just like these guys with like 5-inch long eyelashes and a face full of makeup and these horrible fingernails. They're like, and I'm just like, what? Who are these awful people, and how did this happen?
Well, no, but I know an argument that people are out there thinking right now is they're saying your perception of this new movement is exactly what the old, stuffy white folk were thinking about the gay movement 10 years ago. So you're just not with it anymore. Where is, I mean, at some point, everyone has to draw a line and say, what is within the realm of the spectrum of human behavior, that should either be normalized or should be promoted or should be respected, but not necessarily glorified as we see it happening right now. Yeah, I guess people are looking at you. Okay, you got your rights. You're a gay man. You got your rights. Now you're the stuffy old white person who wants to deny this to other people. What's your retort, Brandon?
Here's my response to that. Look, I am a biological man who is attracted to other biological men. That makes me gay. And lesbians are what they are, and transgender people are what they are. That's fine. What these new people in this community are fighting for is that they are demanding to be respected and tolerated and basically compel other people to celebrate their expression of what they want to be. And that's not the same thing. So yes, I totally, like, my pursuit of wanting to be respected and wanting to have equal rights. I saw somebody in the comments earlier say, well, there's a difference between having equal rights and being respected. For the record, I don't disagree. I don't believe you can legislate respect. I don't believe that you can force other people to respect you. And that has never been my goal. But I think that you can earn people's respect by having conversations with them, by trying to, I think, kind of illuminate for people what you really are, that might put fears to rest that they have, because I think at the end of the day, people are like, I don't really understand who you are or what you want. And that makes me uncomfortable. And that makes me uncomfortable about what you want to do to our society. I get it. So when I talk about trying to make people respect you, I just mean through having conversations and through, opening people's minds, hopefully through that kind of dialogue. But that is different than saying, putting on a face full of, bizarre and unusual looking makeup, shaving half your head and making your hair purple or green or whatever. And then also saying, I'm neither male nor female. I am one of 87 different gender identities on the spectrum. And because I'm one of these different gender identities, I have special words and pronouns that you have to refer to me by. And if you don't refer to me by these words, it's because you're a bigot. No. And for the record, I'm not opposed, other than the little kid stuff, which I'm totally opposed to that. But I mean, if you're a grown adult and you want to have, green or purple hair and wear makeup if you're a boy or whatever, I don't care. That's, by the way, and it's not new, by the way. I mean, when I was growing up, Boy George was like a huge hit. Billy Idol, all of those 80s hair bands where the guys had a whole face full of makeup and long blown out hair, and
Twisted Sister. I just watched that video. I never realized it until now.
Nobody cares. I don't care. No one cares. What I think where people draw the line and they get upset and they start caring is when you have this expression and you basically say that this is like a medical condition, and that because it's a medical condition, rooted in science, and that science and biology will back up the fact that, you're neither male nor female, and that because there's a biological standard here, people have to use special language and words in your presence to make you feel like, forget it, because this is completely contrary to science, biology, and common sense. And if you want to express yourself however you want to express yourself, I respect you. And nobody should make you feel bad, and nobody should cut you down. And I got your back on all that. But don't compel my speech, and don't compel my politics to facilitate what you need to, I guess, apparently feel respected. And I think that for a lot of these people, what they need to feel respected is to force other people into an acceptance that people don't want. And that has nothing to do with being LGBT.
And I think you might have actually hit the nail specifically on the head, which is when it came to certain rights are, leave me be, respect my decisions to act in the way that I want to act. Don't persecute me for it. Don't assault me. Don't call me. Respect the way I want to act with myself, with others who want to act that way with me. Versus now you have to transform your reality to reflect what I perceive to be my reality, even if it means denying what what most people consider to be the basic tenets of science, and to compel others to change their behavior, not just in terms of live and let live, but rather change their active behavior in order to respond to what other individuals consider to be their entitlement of a response from other people. And so one is purely internal, the other one is purely external, in that it seeks to govern other people's behavior as opposed to only request the respect of the individuals.
And it's, if I may, it's not a two-way street, by the way, either. So let's be really clear about that, because I'm a gay man who, like it or not, and I don't like it, belongs to this community. And now this community wants to insist that people like me be called queer. I have expressed numerous times over the last several years to people who do that to not do that to me. I don't want to be called queer. I don't feel good about the word queer. It embarrasses me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It does not make me feel dignified. It doesn't make me feel grown. It doesn't make me feel like a respectable human being. I think it's degrading, disgusting, and demeaning. And when I tell people that, they basically tell me to go F myself, because they're like, well, it's your problem if you don't like, this word, but this is the word that so don't tell me that I have to use these special words to make you feel respected and acknowledged and lifted up when you spit in my face when I tell you that I don't want to be called queer. You demand that I have to be called queer. I can't tell you that you need to be called she and her because you're obviously a woman. You're obviously a woman. Or that you need to be called he or him because you're obviously a man. Like, that is offensive and out of bounds for these people. But for me to say, don't call me queer, their response is go screw yourself. So it's not a two-way street of respect. And that's why these people, we can't dignify this. I will not dignify this.
Well, you're one step, you have one more defense than, someone who's not gay, in that someone who's not gay and white and male says, I don't accept this. Absolute bigotry, because on the victimhood, what Gad Sad would call in the victimhood Olympics, they're higher up on that oppression totem pole,
the hierarchy. Yeah.
I say, at least you say, well, I can't be a bigot. I'm gay. Like, I can't be an anti-Semite, although I guess I could be. But so now I think we've actually gotten right into the perfect point. I know your not breaking point, but your turning point. I suspect the chat might not know. When did you say, holy crap, I have been not living a lie, but rather I have been on a team, politically speaking, that I didn't know were filled with people that I no longer want to be associated with? When did that happen and how?
Well, okay, so I'm going to tell this story real quick. I told it, I was on the Tucker Carlson Today, which is his hour-long Fox Nation show. So for anybody who's watching and wants to, learn a little bit more too, you can go to Fox Nation and watch. It was just a couple of weeks ago, and the episode is called Walking Away from the Left. But I shared this story with Tucker, and I'll share it with your audience too. So before I'd actually had my political transition, one of the final nails in the coffin for me with the left was when all of these the Huffington Post had a subsect that they called Huffington Post Gay Voices. And then they announced, I believe in 2016, that they were going to change the name of that to Huffington Post Queer Voices. And they even said, like, we understand that some people in the community might not like or embrace this change, but we find it to be very progressive and we find it to be very inclusive. And I expressed in the comments on Facebook on the Huffington Post Gay Voices, now Queer Voices page, that all the reasons that I found it demeaning and disgusting and degrading, and that, for people of a certain age or geographical location, this was a word that we associated with bullying and violence and a lot of other things. And all of these non-binary and gender fluid and queer people banded together and started, like, first of all, they started just coming after me and telling me that I was a privileged gay man. And of course, I was using my gay privilege to push back against the progress of the community. And then they all banded together and reported me to Facebook and got me suspended from Facebook for hate speech. So I got a message from Facebook basically saying that because I was objecting to being called queer, I was banned for 30 days for hate speech.
Let me just stop you there, because someone noticed it too. So you went from fighting for your equal rights as a gay man to having now what they call gay privilege. I mean, it's absurdity. It's absurdity. Like that, and now you're no longer a victim who had to fight for equal rights. You are now an oppressor because of the very victimhood or the status that you sought for equal rights. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Well, yeah, and I'm an oppressor. Yeah, by the way, I'm an oppressor who ended up getting banned from Facebook for 30 days because all of the victims banded together and reported me. So, I mean, who has the power? Who are we kidding here? When big tech is going to side with all of these people and not a gay person, just because the gay person says they don't want to be called queer. I mean, who really has the power? Let's not kid ourselves. And so that was the moment when I was stunned. I was stunned when I got that message from Facebook. And that was the day that I made a decision that I could no longer, I was like, I'm walking away. That wasn't a thing yet, but I was like, I'm walking away from this community. I'll always be gay. I'll be gay until the day I die, but I don't want to be a part of this community because I don't recognize it. These are not my values, and I don't understand what's wrong with these people or what they're doing, but they do not represent me. And so I'm done. And so I made a decision at that point that as sad as I was about it, I wanted nothing more to do with the LGBT community. And then that takes us into the 2016 election. And I'm a huge Hillary fan, huge Hillary supporter. I was very excited.
How? I mean, it's not. This is not political. This is personal. How is? I never understood it. What did you see in her at any point in time that you thought you liked?
Well, I think that, again, if you look back at what I said earlier about me taking my political cues from Hollywood celebrities and music stars and stuff, people were very forgiving of Bill Clinton. And to the point where the media completely carried water for him during the Lewinsky scandal and a number of other things. And so he kind of came out of that whole situation as kind of a targeted and beleaguered hero in a way. And Hillary, really, according to the left-wing narrative, came out as, very much this downtrodden woman who was powerful and effective, but being pushed around by men, but she's still stood her ground. And she became almost like a feminist hero in a way, which is sort of ironic because her husband cheated on her and she ended up looking like a real fool. But I think so that's where the narrative, I think, sort of began. But then, remember, she came to my state and became a senator. And so liberal idiots in New York thought she was amazing. I remember she marched in the Gay Pride Parade in 14 or 15 or something, which was a joke because she was so openly against gay marriage and gay rights just years before that. But then she was like, oh, the tide is turning, so I'll change my mind. And I think that I just really bought into the left-wing narrative of her being the most prepared candidate, of her being the perfect and ideal first woman president. And when you're not in a position where you see what CNN is doing and what MSNBC is doing, when you don't see it, that it's very easy for them to kind of hypnotize you with their narratives about crap. And they did. I mean, it's very hypnotic. I mean, it's the same way it's the same hypnosis that they used on all of us about Trump. And I bought into that too. So I think that I just saw her as this iron-willed woman with a lion's heart who wanted to do good for her country. And she had gotten a raw deal so many times with the men in her life, but she persevered through that. And, how glorious it is to do that.
She powered through it, Brandon.
Powered through it, yeah.
And so when did that I'll call it idolatry for lack of a better word. When did that get shattered?
Well, God, let me think about that, because I think I came around. All right, let me think. Well, okay, so I voted for Hillary in 2016. I was shocked and crushed and devastated when Trump got elected. And that sent me on a journey to I wanted to understand why and how he got elected. I wanted to understand how the media that I trusted had got it so wrong. And I wanted to understand why anyone would vote for this guy. And so I was really upset, and I was posting constantly on social media my outrage, especially towards people who I grew up with, that I knew they had all voted for Trump. And in January of 2017, I posted that I would never be on Facebook, that I would never be able to understand how anyone could vote for a man who was capable of standing before a cheering crowd and mocking a reporter's disability. And that was when a woman named Diane, who was my childhood babysitter and a staunch Christian conservative, reached out to me privately and sent me a link to a YouTube video entitled "Debunking that Trump Mocked the Disabled Reporter." And when I saw just the title of the video, and she just said, she was like, I just want to know if you've seen this. I'm not trying to start a fight with you. I'm not trying to start an argument. And just the title of the video enraged me, because I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be more like right-wing brainwashing, Fox News propaganda. And then I actually watched the video, and it's like I almost sort of dissociated from my body, because basically what the video was is a compilation of footage of Donald Trump throughout the years in numerous circumstances doing that exact same voice and that exact same gesture as he did that day when he was at his rally imitating that reporter. And what it showed so clearly was that this is a bit that Donald Trump has done for a long time. Anytime he's imitating anybody who's flailing because they're caught in a lie or doing something shady or dishonest. And so for anyone who doesn't remember, on that day at his rally, and I think it was 2015 or 2016, there was a Washington Post reporter who he was caught in a lie. Basically, it had something to do with reporting on 9/11, and that there were people like in Staten Island or something, Muslim people who cheered when the towers fell, and Trump said that had happened. And that's this reporter, I think, had put out a narrative that Trump was an anti-Muslim bigot for telling this lie. Well, then somehow it was discovered that this reporter did in fact report on the fact that had happened in the past. They discovered that. And so the reporter was trying to backtrack. And when Trump was recounting that story to his audience, he started imitating this reporter flailing and going, "Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember." And he kind of went like that. Well, CNN, while he was doing the flailing thing, froze the image of him, froze it like this. And as it turns out, that reporter has a short arm. I think the reporter had cerebral. I think it was cerebral palsy. I'm not 1,000% certain, but I don't even think it was that, honestly, because there's literally no disability that this reporter seems to have other than the fact that his arm is short. I mean, he's not cognitively impaired. Well,
the chat will let us know, because that was my thing. I didn't even know that the reporter at the time had any disability, or any. I don't know what the word that's not going to get me in trouble is. I didn't know the reporter had any disability whatsoever until so people are saying cerebral palsy. That's what I thought it was. I didn't know that the reporter even had it when this issue came out, and they linked the two things together. I saw the exact same video that you saw, the montage. And sorry, yeah, please go on.
Oh, yeah. So I was reading the comments. I
wouldn't read all of them, Brandon.
Trust me, no one could say anything to hurt me after what I've gone through. I'm good. But sorry, one sec. Let me shift around a little bit. There we go. So it was a compilation of footage showing that Donald Trump has done this voice and gesture numerous times throughout the years when he's imitating anybody who's flailing because they're caught in a lie or doing something dishonest. And when I saw it, I remember my heart racing and feeling almost like lightheaded, like I was dissociating, because it was so obvious that he was not making fun of that reporter's disability. But it sort of created a new conundrum for me, because I was like, okay, well, if he wasn't mocking that reporter's disability, why did CNN tell me that he did? Why would they do that? And so that's where this all started for me. And then I kind of went on this journey of research to try to understand, like, did CNN lie, and if they did, why, and how often is this happening, and what is the end game? And so as I went on this journey of research, I started becoming sort of ostracized by fellow liberals and friends because I was asking questions and sending people links and saying, have you seen this? And what do you make of this? And I really went back to the beginning too of his campaign and went back to, did he really call all Mexicans rapists? Did he really, is the Muslim
defend Yahtzees at Charlottetown or whatever?
Well, no, that hadn't happened yet. That had not happened yet. So that was like the first incident that I actually got to experience in real time after I had walked away by that point. But I went back and I watched all of these moments in their proper context, and I watched his whole speeches, and rather than just those little isolated sound bites that CNN was putting out. And then I started to see that they were lying constantly lying, saying that, he had engaged in some form of racism or bigotry, but it was never true. It was blowing my mind. And I was just like, why are they doing this? Like, what the hell is going on? And then I started to realize, oh my God, this is like a huge mass manipulation, isn't it? Like, all of this time that I believed that Trump was, they were saying that he was going to reverse gay marriage and roll gay rights back, and that gay people were going to get arrested and taken to prisons and all of this stuff. And, I was just falling for all of it, but I'm like, this is a huge mass manipulation. And the purpose of the mass manipulation is to emotionally control me so that they can control my thinking, so that they can control how I vote. And then I became enraged when I mean, like, enraged, because I saw it too. It wasn't just gay people. It was black people, brown people. It was women. It was, anyone that they can control our thinking through lying to us about the news and through this filter of oppression and constantly stoking fear. It just enraged me. And so I made the decision, and then I saw it being echoed too. It was not just the media. It was being echoed by the Democrats, by the members of Congress, by Democrat politicians all across the spectrum. And it was being echoed by Hollywood, and it was being echoed by everyone. And I started seeing how they were just repeating these lies, and people weren't watching full speeches. They weren't taking moments in proper context. They were just repeating misinformation, repeating fear-mongering, and spreading all of this, and getting black people and brown people and LGBT people upset, making us feel scared and divided. And so that's when I decided I had to walk away from the Democratic Party. I had to walk away from the liberal media. I had to walk away from the ideology of liberalism, because I was now starting to understand how this was all connected to these non-binary people and these gender radicals that had infiltrated the gay community. I started to see the ways that these race radicals that infiltrated race communities, who are talking about white privilege and white fragility and their hatred of white people, all of it was starting to make sense. It was all just clicking, and all the pieces of the puzzle were suddenly coming into place. And I was like, I get it now. I get it. And then after I started to get it, that's when I realized why people liked Trump. I was like, because I felt like Paul Revere. Honestly, I was just like, I felt like Christopher Columbus. Like, I had discovered something that no one else knew. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to come riding in on my horse and like shout to the masses about they're lying to us. They're lying to us. And honestly, I didn't, it's like, it wasn't even like an ego thing. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so smart. I literally was just like, oh, I've got to tell everyone this thing that I discovered that no one else knows. And then as I started shouting from the rooftops, conservative people were like, duh. Like, that's, we've known this for like 100 years. And also, why do you think we love Trump so much? And then all of a sudden I started looking at Trump in a new way. And that's when I fell in love with Trump. I was like, oh my God, I get it now. I get everything now. And then that's when I came around to Trump.
Yeah, you saw yourself as Christopher Columbus while everyone else saw themselves as McLean from Die Hard. Like, welcome to the party. The way you describe it, I just visualize Neo out of the Matrix. Seeing it from the outside for the first time. This is when my revelation was not as much of a political one as it was just the media lying incessantly, and the weaponizing of the political process, the prosecutorial process, everything. Now you can't unsee it, and you can't understand how people don't see it. So you walk away. When do you start the actual walk away? I remember walk away happening. I remember the controversy around it. I had no idea, that it was you were it at the time. How did you start it? What happened? And then I guess this is going to bring us into you getting arrested on January 6th.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments, I just lost it, said, please stop saying black and gay together.
I saw that one too, but
to that, I want to say black and gay, black and gay, black and gay, black and gay.
This is one thing that I will say in the chat as well. Whatever side of the political spectrum, telling people what they can and cannot say is not an appropriate thing on either end. So someone saying, call me this, call me that, is no different than saying, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. You're trying to govern someone else's behavior. You do you, and we'll do, Brandon will do Brandon, and Viva will do Viva.
Well, and I have to assume that person said that because they're like, there's a difference between being a black person, being a gay person. And it's like, they don't even understand the irony of that's like literally the exact same thing that the left does. Is like, they're just creating that, like, there's nothing wrong with being a black person, but there's something wrong with being a gay person. It's like, you're just arranging the same hierarchy. It's literally the exact same mentality. So it's like hilarious. But anyway, okay, so I make this decision to walk away. And then, so at the time, this is 2017, like going into summertime. So it's probably around March, April of 2017. And no one knew who I was. I wasn't a public figure. I was just literally just a normal person who was having this incredibly earth-shaking awakening in my life. Black and gay, black and gay, black and gay. And so I started losing all of my friends because again, this goes back to the beginning of this conversation. It's always been my personality type to, I don't like people pushing me around. Black and gay, black and gay, black and gay. I don't like people telling me what to do. I don't like people pushing me around. So when I started asking questions and getting all this pushback from liberal friends, it kind of emboldened me more to want to be like, well, screw you guys. Who are you guys to tell me what I can and cannot think? And so the more I was getting that pushback, the more I started just openly posting things. And it really was just kind of starting out as like questions, saying like, was the Muslim ban really a ban? Like, is there really a wage gap? Like, because let's break it down. Let's talk about like the various factors that aren't being considered when there's this left-wing narrative that there's this wage gap, that it's women are being oppressed, and just stuff like that. And I literally lost about 90% of my friends in 2017, and they were very nasty about it too. A lot of them, not all, but some of them just unfriended me. But some of them wrote to me these very scathing, nasty comments saying that, obviously I had joined a cult or lost my mind, that I was going crazy.
They don't see the projection and all. They don't see that what they're accusing you of is essentially true of themselves. I'm sorry, I had to.
No, it's okay. They're so entitled, and as we sit here today, I'm 7.5 years sober. We didn't really get into the part of my story where I became a cokehead and like a raging alcoholic, but I did get sober in 2015. So I'm now 7.5 years sober, and my sobriety is something that's really important to me. And so a lot of them too started being like, oh, I guess you fell off the wagon. I guess you started doing drugs again. I guess you started drinking again. And I'm like,
extremely, extremely insulting. Actually,
it's extremely insulting. And I'll tell you something. I mean, it's the part about it that's most bothersome is not necessarily even having somebody throw your sobriety in your face like that in such a nasty and weaponized way, but it's the fact that none of these people even bothered to call me on the phone and just say, hey, why don't you walk me through what's going on? Like, why did you change your mind? Why is this happening? Like, wouldn't you at least just be curious? And this is the part that drives me crazy, and it'll always drive me crazy. Like, if I had a friend on either side of the political aisle, if I had a friend who was liberal or diehard conservative, and either one of them started literally becoming a Nazi, like if they started literally posting like swastikas and Heil Hitler and things like that, I would still call them on the phone and just be like, hey, can you kind of walk me through why you've ended up in this place? What's going on? Like,
Well, Brad, I might take it the other way. I might slowly back away from them, but I certainly would not. If I saw someone literally becoming what I thought would be a Nazi, I wouldn't antagonize them and do something like rub some of their history in their face and say, hey, I mean, I might just casually and discreetly, go somewhere else. But no, but I appreciate what you're saying.
no,
It's like,
I would be super
have the
curious.
discussion.
I would be so curious. Like, that doesn't mean that I would be open to embracing this change, but like my sense of curiosity would not allow me to not try to understand it. I mean, just the same way I wanted to understand how anyone could vote for Trump. I wanted to understand why people liked him. I wanted to understand, like, I guess I'm just a curious person, and that's what opened my mind and allowed me to change my mind. But like, so these people who are just like throwing me under the bus and being like, oh, well, obviously you're like on drugs again and whatever. And I'm like, you don't even know why I changed my mind or why I'm saying any of this stuff. It's crazy. But I kind of developed a little bit of like an anxiety disorder, because every time I would say something political, this would happen. And I wasn't going to back down, and I wasn't going to stop saying it. But I knew that every time I would say it, it would have some sort of backlash attached to it. So I made this decision in early 2018. It was around April of 2018. I just said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to make a video where I basically just say everything that I believe, that like why I no longer want to be a liberal, why I no longer trust the liberal media, why I no longer trust the Democrats. I'm just going to like lay it all out there. And then I'm going to
That's the video that was pinned on your Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Where you had long hair, right?
Longer hair than I have now. Yeah.
It was the pin. It was a 6-minute video with some dramatic music in the back. Okay. Because I saw that. I noticed it was a newly pinned video on your Twitter feed.
Yeah.
But I thought it had to be an older video.
It is. Okay. Around April, I decided that I wanted to put something together and say this and put it out. And I was out jogging one day, and the script for that video kind of just downloaded itself into my brain. And I ran home really excited, and I wrote it out. And then I read it to a friend of mine, and he was like, "That's amazing. That's amazing." And he was like, you have to put this out. And, so I got a camera and set it up, and I recorded myself saying this script that I had written. And then I spent about 2 weeks editing the video. And by that, I mean, I added music, and I added headlines, clips of headlines that sort of supported everything that I was saying, and a little bit of video footage that supported the things that I was saying. And I put the video together, and I was like, I knew, I was like, this is so good. Like, I just feel like this is so good. And I thought to myself, I think there's something bigger here than just like sticking it to my friends who are treating me like crap. I was like, I know that there has to be hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people who are feeling the same way I'm feeling, who are, socially liberal, who are against racism, who are against homophobia, who are against all these things, but they're just being pushed away by the like dictatorial sort of behavior of people on the modern left. And they're being kind of pushed, at least to the center, maybe even the right, by this kind of behavior that I literally truly believe that liberalism has been co-opted and absorbed by the very characteristics it claims to fight against. It's liberals who are becoming anti-free speech, who are becoming bigoted, who are becoming racist, who are becoming who are judging people based off of their sexuality, and I don't want any part of it. So I put this video together, and I created a Facebook group that I called the #WalkAway campaign. And I didn't have any media contacts. I didn't have any political contacts. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any following of any kind, but I just had this video and this idea. And so I created the Facebook group and I launched the video and I just said, you know, please share this. And if you feel the way that I feel, join my movement and create your own video telling your own story about why you're walking away from the left. And it just exploded. I mean, the video that I put out within a month, it had gotten millions of views. And it was just being shared and shared and shared. And the hashtag started going crazy and going crazy. And then people were joining the group and making videos. And then I slowly caught I started doing AM radio interviews, and then that turned into national radio interviews. And then people started doing written pieces about it. And then people in the world of politics started posting about it on Twitter and talking about it. And then 6 weeks after I put the video out, I got a call from the Tucker Carlson show that they wanted me to come on. And then that night I was on Tucker Carlson, and the next night I was on Laura Ingraham, and the next day I was on Charles Payne, and the day after that I was on Fox and Friends, and then the next day after that I was on Judge Jeanine, and it was just like boom, I was everywhere. And then Walkaway just became like this phenomenon.
I remember it. I don't think I remember it with you. I just remember Walkaway, and I remember the hashtag Walkaway. So that's 2018.
Yeah.
What happens with you? I guess we're gonna have to skip some of this because we need to get to January 6th. But what happens now of your political social media presence from 2018 to the day of infamy now, January 6th, 2020? Oh, it was only 2 years actually. Okay. What happens between 2018 and 2020 with you, social media? You become now I don't want to say it to slap on labels, but you become the gay man conservative now, Trump supporter. So they get to brand you as being one of the, even these people can be racist Trump supporters. Is that sort of how the public brands you from 2018 going forward?
Well, I guess so. But I mean, at the time, things were so for years, it was just everything was, in my opinion, mostly positive. I mean, so Walkaway was growing and growing and growing. And people were very supportive of everything that I was doing. So I launched several organizations, the Walkaway Foundation and the Walkaway Campaign PAC. And I was able for over the course of years to raise a good deal of money at a grassroots level. And so we started traveling the country in 2019 and 2020, doing these events like Walkaway town halls, doing them for the Black community, the Hispanic community, the LGBT community, Black and gay, Black and gay, Black and gay. And then we started doing our own educational videos called The Hard Truth, which were like these little 5-minute videos kind of debunking liberal media lies and myths and stuff. And for anybody who maybe isn't totally familiar with Walkaway, go to walkawaycampaign.com. Go to our website because you'll get to see pictures and videos and really surf around. I mean, because it's unbelievable what we accomplished in just a couple of years. I mean, really, truly phenomenal. And then COVID kind of shut the world down, and 2020 got a little bit quieter. And then that took us through to the election. And we all know how the election went, and we all know how the election was disputed. And I became one of the people traveling around the country doing rallies to encourage people to press their state legislatures for a forensic audit of the vote in these swing states. And then I got invited to go to DC on January 6th to speak at the Capitol after the president spoke at the Ellipse. And it felt like a great honor and opportunity to me. So I ultimately decided to go. And on January 6th, I sat there and listened to the president speak. And then I marched from the Ellipse to the Capitol, as was always supposed to be the plan. And as I was getting close to arriving at the Capitol, I started getting some text messages from people saying that they were at home watching on television and hearing that people were going inside the building. And so at that point, I started recording a video, and I basically shot one long continuous video as I walked onto the Capitol grounds. And I was on the east side of the building, which is the opposite side of where all of the people, like any footage that people have seen of people smashing windows or struggling with police officers, that wasn't going on. where I was. That was on the west side of the building. I was on the other side of the building entering, and I'm shooting my video. And as I approach the steps on the east side, there's thousands of people around. And there's a man on the steps hollering, they've opened the doors. They're letting us in. We're going inside. We're going inside. And so I walked up to the top of the stairs. And what I saw when I got there was that there were 2 large doors on the east side of the Capitol that were completely open. And there was a crowd of hundreds of people at the top of the stairs. Some of them were trying to make their way in. Most people were just standing there filming. And I stood on the east side Capitol stairs for 8 minutes and filmed a video until a man came out of the Capitol. After 8 minutes, he came out, got on a bullhorn, and said, they've cleared Congress. Everyone left the building. He said, move out, move out. And I immediately turned around and I told the people behind me, move out, go this way. And then I left. I never went inside the building. I didn't get within 35 feet of going inside of the building. Go ahead.
I know from your interview on Timcast, you uploaded it after the fact. It wasn't a live stream to your Twitter feed. Started noticing some, people commenting. You took it down. People can still find the video. I watched it before. I watched it today just to see what it looked like.
Yeah,
it looked like what you were describing. A massive crowd. There were like a beeping alarm going off in the background, but it's a massive crowd. There was no overt violence. I mean, I've seen more violence at a hockey celebration for the Stanley Cup losing. I mean, there was no violence or destruction in that particular section. You filmed for 8.5 minutes, camera up in the air, the crowd. You didn't breach the doors. You didn't go through the doors on the front. And there was some disagreement, or we'll get into that now. So the video is what it is. It was effectively like people recording what was a protest, but there was no destruction or violence at that particular location.
I would not. Okay, so again, I'm on the east side, not the west side, and I like people. I mean, we can all have a debate about this, I guess, but I would absolutely not classify what I witnessed as a riot. Were some of the people disorderly? Sure. But to me, a riot it's violent, it's intense. People are breaking stuff. People are that was not going on where I was. And just to be clear, because I know we don't have like 100 years, but if people go to my website, brandonstraka.com, right on the homepage, you'll find my video. It's under a section, I think it's called My Side of the Story. What you can see my video that I'm describing right now with your own eyes. Don't do it until this interview is over. Get through this interview first. But they can see that for themselves. So, and there's one other thing I want to address that you just said, because it's this doesn't come up very often, but it is kind of important. So even the judge in my case when I was being sentenced, basically brought up that like, I should have known that I shouldn't have been there where I was because there was beeping coming from the doors. So I want to address that because I've never really gotten a chance to say it. Okay, for anybody who has a cell phone, which I would think is most people, we've all had this common experience where we're on the phone with somebody and that person's out walking around on the street and the smallest of noises sounds so incredibly loud when you're talking, like if somebody honks their horn or if they walk into a store and it goes ding or something, you're just like, oh my God, what, and the person's like, because it sounds so loud on a phone. And that's really not that different if you're shooting a video too. So yeah, if you watch my video, you're going to hear like beep, 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 beep. That's not what it sounded like when we were there. Like, I don't even remember hearing the beeping of the door when I was there. I remember hearing voices because I had people all around me talking, saying, people were chanting USA, things like that. But when you watch the video, you'll be like, oh, that beeping is pretty loud. That is not what it sounded like when you were there. And I can only tell you that when I was there, the energy did not feel crazy. Like, I'm not a lunatic. I'm not a crazy person. I'm not like, let's go cause some trouble. That's not who I am. And so, and also I'm the kind of person, like, I don't want to die. I don't want to. So if I feel like something is getting out of hand or we're in a bad situation, I'm going to get the hell out of there. But that's just not what the energy felt like. And also people will watch anything that has to do with January 6th and think of the worst parts of January 6th and tie that together. But you can't do that because I didn't see that and I didn't know that. I mean, I only knew what I knew. And what I knew at that time was that somebody said people are going inside. And when I got there, the doors were open and some people were walking inside. And like no one said to me they're breaking windows and they're fighting with police officers and people. I didn't know any of that. So I just want to make that really, really clear. And
actually, now that you mention it, I didn't even think of that high pitched beeping noise probably gets picked up by the mic a lot more than it gets picked up by human ears at the time.
Exactly.
If you can even hear it. And by the way, you know, listening to you describe this and listening to what the government in the United States and the prosecutorial system did with this, I'm analogizing it to exactly what happened with our Ottawa protests, where people were there. It's not clear at what point in time it became illegal to be there. And then as of the time the government says, as of now, you shouldn't have been there. They have gone after certain people with the full force of everything. The kitchen sink is not even enough to describe it. But you're there, you shot an 8.5-minute video, which from my account is in fact nothing more than someone documenting what's going on. This is an event. There's a crowd of people, historic, whatever it is. You know, I'm not even sure what would not make what you did journalism as opposed to instigating or inciting violence. 8.5 minutes. People can go watch it after this.
Yep.
You then go home or you go to your hotel and you upload it thinking that, you know, this was an interesting event that people should see what happened.
Yes. And so, yeah, a couple things about that too. Number one, if I had had the foresight to get a press pass, I don't think any of this ever would have happened to me, because I could have legitimately said I was there documenting an experience, but I didn't know that was what was going to happen. I was on my way to go speak at an event with a stage. And it's, you know, like I've done a million times over the last couple of years. And then suddenly when it shifted and it became, oh, people are going inside the building, I was like, I want to capture this. Because the other thing too is I know how the left-wing media is now after all of these years. So I know that no matter what happens, this is going to be portrayed badly. And it's a really good idea to capture as much footage as I can of the truth, because this is Trump supporters. So of course they're going to be like, oh, Trump supporters tried to burn the Capitol to the ground. And like, I want to make sure I'm getting what's actually going on. And so I went back to my hotel room and I uploaded my video to Twitter. And, you know, I said, like, this is what I witnessed today at the Capitol. And then about an hour or so after that, I don't know, hour, 2 hours, I turned on my TV and I started to see this footage on the news of stuff that had happened on the west side of the building, like people breaking windows and struggling with police officers. And I was like, what is this? It just looked nothing like what I had experienced. And so I got really concerned really fast, because I was like, wow, how bad did this get? And I couldn't figure it out either, because I was like, did that happen where I was, or was that on a different side, or like what? So it became clear to me really quickly that I did not want to associate with this in any way, because I didn't know how bad it got. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. I didn't know. I just didn't get it. So I took my video down immediately, and I took down all the tweets that I had put out that entire day. Because, you know, I had been tweeting all day long, you know, and being like, you know, we demand a fair election and we demand that, you know, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what the hell's going on. So I just took it all down. And then I didn't think about it again. I mean, I felt really disappointed in everything that had happened that day, not just whatever this riot was, but I mean, the whole day. I mean, I came to DC thinking that there was going to be like some reveal of some kind about them not certifying the election so that we could have the audit because that was the whole thing. People wanted a forensic audit of the vote so that if Joe Biden had most certainly won, we could all feel at peace with that and then move forward with certification.
Absolutely.
Feeling
even
good
if,
about it.
It's not a question of undermining elections. It's a question of reinforcing them. If it was the most secure in history and yada yada, you want to jump on this. You want to quell the 75 million Americans who have doubt on this. But whole separate discussion as to whether or not the very reason for refusing to do it is to exacerbate the distrust for, you know, divide and conquer purposes.
No, that's so stupid. I'm sorry, but that's so stupid. Like that's what the left tried to try. Oh, this threat on democracy and the day that democracy died and the day. It's so dumb. It's literally exactly the opposite. You have 74 million people who voted for Donald Trump at minimum. I mean, might have been more, but we know for sure that 74 million people voted for him. And we also know that the vast majority of those people felt like something was wrong in this election. And honestly, it's unconscionable that that matter was never put to rest, because I can tell you that if the situation were reversed and it was tallied that that Donald Trump got 81 million votes and that Joe Biden got 74 million votes, and that the majority of the people who voted for Biden thought the election was stolen, I would demand that we have a forensic audit, because I would, first of all, I'd say, well, I want to prove that Trump is this popular, and I want to prove that we won. But also, I don't want to go into the next 4 years with this type of division and hatred, with people feeling like the election was stolen and that this is going to get dragged out and it's going to be this huge, like, I would absolutely demand on behalf of the other side that we settle this before moving forward. But that's not what they were doing. They were saying,
that's because you've walked away and you have a different perspective of how transparency works. But Brandon, so I'm curious, what comments did you start getting that what's the word that gave you the impetus that basically made you decide to delete the posts? Did you notice, not troll comments, did you notice people saying, get this down, this is incriminating? Or did you just say, now that I don't know what's going on, I want to pull this back and make sure I'm not going to be associated with something that was not what I witnessed?
No, it was totally my decision. And my decision was only based on not wanting to create misunderstanding about my intention or where I was, because again, I didn't understand what I was seeing on television because I didn't witness it and I wasn't there. So, but no, I mean, I there never in a million years did I think that I had done anything criminal, and never in a million years did I think that anyone would think that I did anything criminal. So I didn't take it down because I was like, oh God, I don't want to get arrested, or like, that wasn't even in my mind. My biggest fear at the time was that people would think that I supported anyone who did do criminal things. Okay. That was it.
No. So you delete the video, you delete the tweets. My running philosophy with the internet is deleting it makes it look more incriminating than just leaving it up, and leave it up and explain, as opposed to deleting it and looking guilty-ish, like you're trying to hide something. I understand your explanation. I do want to know if your deletion was ever held against you in the future, but remind me about that question. You delete it. When does then you think this is over, I'm just going about my life. What happens next?
Yeah. And God, I forgot what you literally just said 2 seconds ago.
Deleting it as in covering up your looking more guilty, or whether or not it was held against you in the future.
No.
By the prosecutors.
No, it wasn't. No, luckily that was never held against me as like deleting evidence, or no, it wasn't, thank goodness. But no, so I flew back home the next day, and so what happened is, even though my video was only on Twitter for like an hour or two, it had already been copied by Twitter trolls, and those Twitter trolls kept reposting it and tagging the FBI. And this went on for 2.5 weeks, and it was not getting better. It was getting worse. It's not like, because I just thought like, oh, eventually they'll lose interest, or it's, they'll just tire themselves out. But it was just like getting worse and worse. And so people started asking me, are you scared? And I was like, no. I was like, I started to feel like I probably would get visited and I would probably have to answer some questions, but I was like, I didn't do anything. So no, I'm not scared about it. And so then 2.5 weeks later, on Monday, January 25th, a team of FBI agents in tactical gear came to my apartment at dawn and got me out of bed, and presented me with a search warrant and put me in handcuffs, and said that they were taking me to jail and that I was facing multiple felony charges for what I had done on January 6th.
You need to stop right there for 1 second. Mm-hmm. Tactical gear cops show up at your house.
FBI.
FBI. Armed.
Mm-hmm.
In I want to say dress up. Armed in gear. Show up. Are you living in an apartment, a house?
In an apartment.
They show up at 6 a.m?
I'd say that's about right.
And they knock on your door. Or they don't knock your door down.
They're pounding on my door, and I immediately knew it was them, because who knocks like that? So I shot out of bed, and I was like, oh my God, they're here. This really is happening. and I went running to my door because I felt like if I don't get there fast, they're going to break it down. So I got there in time to be able to open the door. And when I did, there was a team of agents standing on the other side. They came in, they presented me with a search warrant, and a group of them went in and started stripping my apartment of my computer, my iPad, my phone, my hard drive, thumb drives, camera equipment, clothing, just taking these things and putting them into bags. And the other 1 or 2 or 3 agents turned me around, cuffed my hands behind my back, told me I was going to jail and that I was facing multiple felonies for what I had done.
I mean, I would love to have seen this. I cannot imagine this. This is straight out of. I mean, at least when they arrested Tamara Litch in Canada, you know, they were polite about it. But I mean, it's the outcome is the same. This is like James O'Keefe-ish. When James O'Keefe described the pre-dawn raid on his apartment to get his cell phone over the stolen diary, stolen whatever, they cuff you. And when they say you're going to jail, I mean, is this like in the movies, like you're going to jail for a long time? Or are they smiling? Are they laughing? Are they cordial? Or are they just like outright? I mean, it couldn't be more intimidating, but is it just like, are they like, are you scared for your life?
I wasn't scared for my life, but I was definitely, I knew this was really serious, and I knew it was really bad. And I knew that, I knew I was in trouble. And, you know, this was 5 days after Joe Biden became the president. And this was 5 days, you know, the Democrats have now taken full control of the federal government. And I'm Brandon Straka, the walk away from the Democratic Party guy. And they're telling me that I'm facing multiple felonies in conjunction with January 6th. And in terms of their demeanor, I would not describe their demeanor as like hostile or threatening in that way, but it was definitely a very no nonsense attitude. And I remember the lead agent who was talking to me the most saying, he said to me, I was facing felonies, and I said, felonies? I said, I didn't even commit any crimes.
You didn't put your finger on another human being.
No. And he said, oh, I saw your video. Like I saw what you did.
Oh, they'll find something. I mean,
yeah,
they've been doing it in Canada too. I just want to actually address one thing. I pulled up a chat that said, you know, surprised you went back on Timcast. I pulled it up by accident, but I think Tim explained his initial reaction at the time. I'm not getting into that drama between Brandon. I didn't even know you guys.
There's no drama. There's no drama.
Okay, and Tim addressed it during the interview, so we don't need to go over that. But they come in. Oh yeah, they've had 2.5 weeks to go over the video, you know, dissect it so they can come up with any number, you know, find the crime. Show me the man, I'll find you the crime. And this is something you glossed over in the interview with Tim. This is where I have my own neuroses. I know what I pick up on. You were in jail for, you said 2.5 days?
Yes.
23-hour lockdowns.
23-hour lockdown. Yeah, they took me to jail. They put me in an orange jumpsuit. They injected a needle into my arm, and because they told me that as an inmate, I was forced to take a TB test. So a complete stranger at the jail injected a substance into my arm, and it was a very, very dark and imposing process that I had to go through before I was taken to my cell block. And then they took me upstairs to a cell block where they told me that I would be in 23-hour lockdown. And they told me I would not be seeing a judge that day because they picked me up in the middle of a blizzard. So they knew that the courts were closed. And rather than wait until the courts were open again to come get me, they came and got me during a blizzard when they knew I'd not be able to see a judge. And I was told, I was so, I was panicked, you know, and I just said, well, will I be able to see a judge tomorrow? We don't know. We don't know if the courts will be open. And I just remember, well, can anyone guarantee me when I can see a judge? And they said, we don't know. They said, we don't know how long the weather will be bad. And even when the courts reopen, there'll be a backlog of cases. It could be next week before you get to see a judge. And they're telling me that I'm going into 23-hour lockdown Monday through Friday. And then they tell me that on Saturday and Sunday, you don't even get an hour. Like you're literally just in your cell all day Saturday, all day Sunday into Monday, and then you'll get an hour out of your cell on Monday. And I'm like, with no idea if I'm going to see a judge this week, next week, no clue. They take me up to my cell, shut the door, and it was 2 days before somebody came back and opened the door and told me that I had they told me I had an attorney phone call. And so I went down and I met my attorney on the phone, who my team from the Walkaway organization had found for me. And he told me that he had talked to the prosecutor and that he had arranged a virtual hearing with a judge for me that day, and that there was in all likelihood I would be released, because he said the government is not going to fight for you to be detained. And so I ended up having a virtual hearing with a judge later that day. The judge did order my release, and then after midnight the second night, I ended up getting out in the early morning of the third day.
Just get back to the TB or whatever it was. Was it a syringe that went into your arm?
Oh yes, he slid the syringe into the skin of my forearm and injected a substance that formed a bubble in my forearm.
That would have been the absolute end for me, I think. And I'm not a needle freak. I'm not afraid of needles. I give blood. I gave blood all the time before the world shut down. In invading my body, I mean, did you not have a choice? Did you?
No choice.
And if you lash out and freak out, add another 3 felonies for assaulting a police officer.
100%. Or just whatever, disorderly conduct or being uncooperative, whatever the hell. And and you have to keep in mind too, this is like at the height of vaccine, the debate about vaccine, so it's like burned into everyone's mind, like, don't inject me with something that I don't want. This is like one of the most talked about things that are happening. And now suddenly I'm like in an orange jumpsuit in a jail with a complete stranger sticking a needle in my arm and injecting me with something. To this day, I don't know what it was.
That is, and look, bottom line, Chad, if it's not, I don't care what it was. I don't care what it was. Saline, someone force it, not for. That's okay. I didn't even know that. That's okay. Speechless.
Yeah.
So were you in a cell? Did you leave the cell at any point for the 2 days, or are you in
no. So it was like an 8 by 8 or whatever concrete. It was made out of concrete bricks, like cinder blocks, yeah. And it had a metal door with a vertical window, like maybe like 2 inches across. Like I remember you either had to like look with one eye or the other, but you couldn't see, and that was it. And there are so many things about that. I mean, I'm very claustrophobic anyway, so I forget it. But like this was in January, late January, so they had there were 2 squares on the wall. One was on like this wall and one was on this wall, and it's hard to describe, but I wouldn't call them ducts, because when you think of a duct, you think of like a grid pattern or something that air can like travel through. These were it was almost like a screen, and a screen where just like teeny tiny little holes in it. And one of them for a while was like blasting out hot air, and then the other one, I guess, is like receiving the air and whatever. But I remember I'm already in a panic, and I'm already freaking out. So I ripped my orange jumpsuit off, and I was literally just standing in there with they give you a pair of brown underwear. So I'm standing in there with brown underwear and plastic sandals, and a guard went walking by my cell. And I just said, I know this is probably a ridiculous question, but I was like, can you turn the heat off? And he was like, no. He was like, it's either on or it's off. And he was like, these are the winter months, so it's off. And I mean, I'm telling you, like, you're just in there, you're like, I can't even control the temperature of the air, and it's too hot, and I'm panicking, and I'm just in there like,
I don't want to see. I mean, we'll see it. I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to say it. Someone says it's only 2 days. It's only 2.5 days. I'm telling you, I'm not claustrophobic. I got stuck in an elevator. 2 seconds, I'm freaking out, and like not like breathe. Just you can't control your breathing. You're in this. You have no. It's torture. I mean, I don't care that it's only 2.5 days or a little over 2 days.
Yeah,
that's out. That's okay. I'm sorry.
Well, no, so, and that person. Listen, yeah, to that person, yeah,
Nobody said it, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, some people might.
Okay. Well, yeah, to anybody who might be thinking that, I guess I would say, like, yeah, you have the benefit of listening to the story in retrospect. I wasn't sitting there. If someone had said to me, "You're going to get out of here in 2.5 days," it would have been horrible. But I would have been like, okay, it's just 2.5 days. It's just 2.5 days. That was not the situation. They were telling me that it could be more than a week before I even have an opportunity to see a judge, and that I'm going to be in this room, in this heat, in this situation for 23 hours a day. And that if my ability to see a judge is next week, I'll get let out 1 hour on Friday. Who knows, maybe 2 p.m. at Friday. And then it's going to be 2 p.m. Monday before I get out again. So I have to go through all night Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and then into Monday before I'm out for 1 hour again. And that there's no guarantee that this judge is going to release me. Like, I'm just sitting here waiting to find out if I'm going to be extradited to DC, where I'm going to be held in prison until my trial.
Which someone pointed out, you know, many people rightly pointed out, is still the case for many of the January 6th defendants.
Yes. Right.
I got to ask you, practically speaking, what did you do for those 2+ days? Do you jog in place to get out energy? Do you just sit there and count holes on the wall? Like, what do you physically, psychologically do for 2 days?
So I paced back and forth from my bed to the metal door, which was 4.5 steps. It was 4.5 steps from my bed to the door and 4.5 steps back from my door to the bed. And I just paced back and forth all through the day, all through the night. Like, I just didn't stop. And I asked, at one point, a guard walked by and I asked him if I could have a book. And he came back with a form. And he said, well, if you want to get a book, you have to fill out this form. And I said, okay. I said, well, after I fill out the form, how long will it take to get the book? And he said, oh, it usually takes about 3 or 4 days. And I was like, are you kidding me? So at that point, I said to him, okay, like, forget the book. I said, would you please be willing to just bring me a bunch of these forms? And he did. Thank God. He was very nice. He came back and he brought me a small stack of these forms. I had a pen because in your kit, they give you a kit with like a thing of shampoo and a toothpaste and stuff. There's a little pen. They take off the hard outer casing. So you just have like that flimsy ink tube inside and then the tip of the pen. So I would pace back and forth for hours. And then when I would get like physically exhausted, I would sit down and just try to write. And I would write, like, I kept it, by the way. I have all of my writings are in a drawer.
I'd love to see it physically, what that sheet looks like in reality. But
do you want me to get them?
Nah, send me a picture afterwards, and then you can tweet it out. It'll be good.
Well, I won't tweet it out because I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book, and I'm putting I'm literally going to copy everything I wrote and put that in the book. But it's I mean, it's literally just the rantings and ramblings of a terrified person. Like, it's sad. I mean, it's heartbreaking to read. There's one page where I literally just wrote the words, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, I'm so scared, over and over again, and let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out. I just, like, there's a whole page of me just writing, let me out. And then the rest of it, I'm mostly writing in stream of consciousness about what I'm feeling, you know, and trying to reassure myself that and it's like 18 pages.
Brandon, chat wants to see.
Okay, hang on one sec.
All right. While Brandon goes, actually, this will be a good time. I'll get to some super chats. Theophrastus, it's amazing how much the wokeness appears to be a cult, including trying to destroy apostates as if they were traitors. Excuse me, I just choked. Leave and they go insane. Thank you, Theophrastus. We got Richard Bloom. Brandon, what is your view on CRT? I'm going to keep this one up and see if we can get to it later. Did you see the new? Okay, so this, by the way, there's a fact check, which I'm going to have to go check with the requisite degree of skepticism for all fact checks. It's always good to hear these perspectives. I watched him on Timcast. I couldn't imagine having to choose the lesser of two evils. We're going to get there. What are conservatives conserving at this point? Okay, Brandon, let's see this. I was reading some chats while you were gone, but
no worries. If you need to keep going for a little bit, that's cool.
You know, here I'll blitz through these. Okay, hold on. I got that. Question is, with gay rights mostly in place, how and why has the trans community gained so much power and influence? I think we've discussed that, but that might be an entirely different subject. When did it become necessary for anyone to define themselves with their sexuality, sexual orientation? Interesting question. Arlie Songbird. Viva, what does Brandon think of Pride Month, or as it is in your country of Canada, Pride season? That manipulation is prominent on the left, and it's globally. Wish I knew how some can be so clear that it's happening and how others get sucked in. Brandon, I've watched you through your entire journey. You were meant for this.
Thank you.
Brandon, what do you see yourself first as? An American or I don't know, the gay I think is a Ricada meme, a gay guy. And what is more important to you?
Oh, I see myself as an American first. And the gay thing I don't even really think about that much anymore, because I don't think Americans care. Not very much, and not very many people. So it just, when I tell my story, when I'm doing public speaking, and I talk about being gay, I talk about my experiences in the gay community, I talk about being a gay conservative, but it's not something I care about anymore.
And I only knew it because you had mentioned it in passing on Timcast. It's not it didn't. Okay, Brandon, chat. Well, I mean, don't show too much that they're going to blow it up and then steal your thoughts and then publish the book before you. But
no, you're not going to be able to see it. So, all right. So, I don't know if you can see, but this is, I just wrote.
Oh, hold on. You know what I'll do? I'll do this.
Oh, well, now you probably can read it. But so and these are like multiple, pages and stuff too. But
did you Brandon, were you writing lengthwise, or was it rectangular way up?
For some reason, I was writing like almost like a book. Like this is one side, and then I was writing on the other side, and then for this one I did it this way, but then I turned it like I was just, I don't know, I was doing this like book stuff. Look at this one. Let me out, 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 let me out. I was just like terrified.
Brandon,
and
it's straight up. I don't want to compare it to all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I mean, it's straight up like Shining level madness, and like child level terror. Like I just say, and it's, you go to zoos, and this is not to be this is not I don't mean this in any mean way, and there's no but. It's the distress of a caged animal of a certain intelligence. Pace, repetitive behavior. You'll notice elephants in too small enclosures. They just keep swinging their heads in the same way, and of a higher order creature with a brain. I mean, it even 2 days. It's torture. It's torture.
Right here on this one, I wrote, the longer this goes on, the more it feels like it's not real. Is there any coping, adjusting? How can anyone stay in a room 23 hours a day? Please let this end soon. Please let me stay calm. Please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Please let me out. It wasn't good.
No, and you spent 2 days. There are some Jan 6 defendants still there. Others a year. Others solitary, denied medical treatment. Okay, but so you get in for 2 days, 2.5 days. Did you say they arrested you on a Monday morning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would have gotten out in the early morning hours of Wednesday.
Okay, you get out, and what are the terms of your release in the interim, like post bond? What were the terms of your release to even get out after 2.5 days?
No, they were really simple. First of all, they didn't even make me post bond. And second, it was real simple stuff. Like I had to surrender my passport. I had to promise not to leave the state that I was living in without permission from the court, not travel to Washington, D.C., not commit any crimes, and that I had to check in with a pretrial services officer every week. And there were just a few things like that. It was very simple, and it was really weird. I'm telling you, it was like very Twilight Zone-ish, because as the prosecution is kind of giving their list of conditions that they're willing to let me out on, they said to the judge, like, we know Mr. Straka didn't engage in any violence or vandalism or theft or destruction, so we're comfortable with allowing Mr. Straka out and not seeking his. And I'm like, why did you send an FBI like team in tactical gear to my apartment, drag me with like, this is insane. This is crazy. I'm like, if you're so like not worried about me or what, or even what I did necessarily,
Why'd you come in with guns ablazing? Well, I say guns ablazing, but
they
close.
could have called me on the phone and been like, we need you to turn yourself in. Yeah, it's like it could like it didn't. It was so obvious that this was done to traumatize me. Which you just read what I just wrote, or you just heard what I just read. It worked. I mean, but this is what they do. Like they'll psychologically put you in the position they want you in, and that's the position they want you making your decisions from. They know what they're doing. This is a formula. This is a formula to get from people what they want.
So now, I mean, we're going to get to your plea deal, but what did they ultimately charge you with?
So they charged me with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. They charged me with a felony of occupying restricted grounds, which is just so I don't know of any other person. I think there are 800 people who have been arrested and charged for January 6th. I'm not aware of one other person who got charged with a felony of being on restricted grounds, including people who went inside the Capitol, which I never did.
Because
I never went inside.
Most people got misdemeanor trespass charges.
They got like misdemeanor picketing or parading inside a Capitol, things like that. But I got a felony charge for being on the steps of the east side of the Capitol for 8 minutes. A felony charge of occupying restricted grounds. I got a felony charge of impeding an officer in the line of duty because during the 8 minutes that I was standing there, in my video that I shot, there's a moment about 35 feet away from me where somebody grabs a shield out of an officer's hands. He comes to the door frame for a moment and somebody grabs his shield, and then several people, there's hundreds of people around. Excuse me. I mean, possibly 1,000, but at least hundreds. Several people start chanting. One person's chanting, "Take the shield, take the shield." Another person is chanting, "Take it, take it." Well, the FBI said, "We know that's your voice. We know that was you shouting, 'Take the shield, take the shield.'" So, and by the way, this just puts me in the strangest position like possible because number one, the idea that I would go to a protest that gets out of hand and like join in with the crowd, like to encourage somebody to, like, is just and then film myself doing it and then intentionally upload it for my conservative audience to watch. Like at the time I had 666,000 Twitter followers, and then came the big purge and I lost 200,000. But at the time I had 666,000 Twitter followers who are all law and order people, who are all pro police people. So the idea that I would like join in with the crowd and then show my audience that I'm doing that and think that they're going to love watching this is just so preposterous and stupid. But anyway, nonetheless, the FBI says, "We know that's you. We know that's your voice." And people go to brandonstrock.com. My video is on there. You can watch it yourself. And I talk on the video several times. You can hear my voice on the video. You can hear the proximity of my voice to the camera and the fact that my voice always comes through the left channel. Like if you wear headphones. Actually, my friend Mikey Harlow said project it onto your TV. He said when you project it onto your TV, it's insane. But I've always watched it with headphones on. Just all I'm saying is just listen to where the voices come from that you're hearing. And then they charged me with a misdemeanor of disorderly conduct with an intent to disrupt a hearing before Congress. And so over the course of the next year, I worked through a plea deal with them where they dropped those felony charges and just charged me with the misdemeanor. But as basically a condition of my plea deal, I had to confess to being the person who shouted. They changed it. They changed it from "take the shield, change the shield, take the shield" to "take it, take it."
Because people also have to appreciate from the legal perspective, when you plea, by and large, you're admitting to guilt. They draft up the statement that you're going to agree to, you're going to sign to. Brandon, They and I want to be careful as to what I don't want to ask you. I don't want to get you into trouble. Period. And James
Well,
O'Keefe.
I already said I confessed to that. So to
Well, no,
I'm-
and that's not what I mean. I mean, as in, I'm going to say, I'm going to refer to when I interviewed James O'Keefe, and he said the only thing that he's ever regretted in his life, he said he's not much into regret, but when he bared false witness to himself and admitted to having done something that he didn't do so that he could cut the plea deal, he regrets that. And he said he would never bear false witness again to anybody, especially himself. They come in pre-dawn raid, charges that could have you in jail for years, assuming that you did anything, but assuming they could prove whatever. You go through try to get a fair trial in DC. You're not going to get the Sussman treatment. You're going to get the anti-Sussman treatment.
Peter Navarro treatment.
You're going to get the Navarro treatment. So you agree to plea. You agree to confess to something which in your heart of hearts, you know you didn't do, but that's the legal reality right now. You signed the paper. And what did the paper say?
Well, hang tight 1 second. Sky Queen says you had a bad attorney, dude. Sky Queen, you're an idiot, and you're obviously not paying any attention whatsoever to what's going on in these cases. I don't know if you have no clue what's going on with January 6th and the January 6th cases, but have you happened to notice that nobody's coming out victorious in January 6th?
One person was acquitted thus far by a judge, no jury trial. Everyone going for jury trial, they're either pleading or they're sitting there rotting away in jail, or they're getting convicted and sentenced. What did Angeli get? 5 years in jail? 5 years. QAnon shaman. 5 years.
Oh yeah.
And no,
I think it's more than that. I think it's like 7.5. I don't know. It's bad. It's really bad.
It's half a decade of a human's life.
So what the plea deal said that I signed was that I'd have to read it again to know all the details, but it says that I went onto the Capitol grounds knowing that they were restricted and knowing that I wasn't allowed to be there. There's some mention made of me witnessing police officers doing their best to restrain the crowd. And it says that I witnessed an officer having his shield taken away and that I began shouting, take it, to encourage the crowd to take the shield from an officer. Again, go here, watch my video, and just decide for yourself. That's it. Just decide for yourself decide for yourself after watching the video if you feel, because remember, I shoot the video from like 2 or 3 blocks away from the Capitol, all the way to when I walk up to the steps. So if you watch my video and you feel like there's evidence of me seeing police officers struggling with the crowd, okay. If you see that in my video, okay. If you feel like it's obvious by watching my video that the grounds are restricted and that people aren't allowed to be on the grounds, okay. Great. All I'm saying is just watch the video. Nonetheless, I signed, I confessed to all of this, and that's what it is now.
Yeah. And now tell the world who might not have watched the Timcast interview what your punishment was. You went from 2.5 days in an 8x6 cell. I know one of your conditions was 3 months house arrest. I think it was 3 months house arrest.
Yeah. So when I finally got to sentencing, well, let me tell you a few things I didn't actually get the chance to say on Tim's show, because people need to know. Okay. And bear in mind, I've already kind of cut to the end where I got a plea deal of a misdemeanor, right? Okay. So I pled guilty to 1 Class B misdemeanor. Now that's a mid-level. A misdemeanor is already what the court calls a petty offense.
Mm-hmm. So
this is a mid-level petty offense. My lawyer said, it's kind of akin to like playing your music too loud on a Friday night. And I have no prior criminal record. So when I got out of jail, I was too traumatized to go back to my apartment. I was very scared to go back to my apartment. So I stayed in a hotel for 3 days. And then when I finally had the nerve to go back to my apartment, when I got there was a note on my door saying that I was being kicked out of my apartment. It was from my building manager saying that I had 30 days to vacate the building. And then the next thing that happened was a week or 2 after that, I got a letter from the government saying that I was they were revoking my TSA pre-check status, that I was no longer considered a low-risk traveler by the government. And then I went to the airport for the first time a few weeks after that because I had to take a business trip. And that's when I discovered that I'd been placed on a terrorism watch list. So I have a designation now when I travel, which is called Quad S or SSSS on my boarding pass. So when I go, it takes about 30 minutes to be able to check into a flight because the airline has to call TSA, and TSA has to approve that I'm allowed to get on the plane, and that takes about 30 minutes. And then I get my boarding passes that say SSSS. So when I go up, the TSA is alerted to that, and they have to close off a special lane just for me. And they bring over about 8 or 9 agents. And it takes about an hour to 2 hours to go through this process where they take every item out of my bag and swab it and test it for explosive materials. They swab my hands and my feet and test that for explosive materials. They do a full body pat down, including putting their hands down my pants, front and back, several times. I have to walk through the metal detector twice. I have to go through the scanner twice. They take pictures of my boarding passes. They take pictures of my ID. And then when I'm finally through this process, I go to the gate, and when I get to the gate and wait for my flight, they bring 8 or 9 agents to the gate, station them all around, behind me, in front of me, and off to my sides, and they bring a special machine to the gate. So when it's time to start boarding the flight, they give me a full body pat down again in front of all the other passengers, and then they take every item out of my carry-on bag again, even though they've just done this, and they take that special machine and they swab everything and test it for explosive materials again, every item in my bag before I can be cleared to get on the plane. So every passenger is watching this happen in terror as I'm about to get on the plane with them.
How many times has this been done to you?
Oh, dozens.
So every time you travel, I'm sitting here thinking
pictures and videos to verify everything I'm saying.
No, I look, if you're a liar, the internet's going to find out. I'm just thinking, on the one hand, the cost of this, the aggregate cost of these employees, the process, and then, like you just mentioned, now, what does this do to anybody else who's dude? I'm a reasonable person. I could even know you, but if I see them doing this to you on a plane that I'm getting on, I'm a nervous person. I'm getting very, very scared. This is undermining my everything, Brandon. You did not get into this with Timcast. Someone had brought up, asked in the chat, said, ask him about his flying experience.
Well, there's more. There's more.
Keep going. But wait, there's more.
Yeah. So the first time that I discovered this, again, it sparked all of the PTSD of the FBI raid and going to jail. I thought I was going to be arrested again. I thought that's what was going on. And I called my pretrial services officer, Julie, and I said, Julie, I'm at the airport and I think they're about to arrest me again. And she was like, why? And I said, I don't know. They're being really weird. And I was like, they're like putting me through all this scrutiny and stuff. And she was like, you're allowed to travel. She said, if anything happens, call me. So I was already in a state of a lot of fear and trauma and like this PTSD like coming back. Excuse me, but I did get on the plane, and I mean, honestly, I was a wreck because this was the first time I tried to travel since I got arrested. So I'm on the plane, and I'm just like, I'm like almost shaking, just like unable to believe how bad this is. And then I opened my email because I always get Wi-Fi on the plane and I work. And so I opened my email, and I have an email from USA Today. And USA Today says, we're doing a story about you and other insurrectionists who are using crowdfunding to support your legal defense funds, and who are using mainstream payment processors like PayPal and Stripe to support your legal defense funds for your insurrection cases. And do you want to make any comment? And I'm going, well, of course. So of course I didn't respond. And then within 24 hours of getting that email, I got emails from PayPal, Venmo, and Stripe saying that I am permanently banned from using their payment processors for the rest of my life. I am not allowed for the rest of my life to use PayPal, Venmo, or Stripe because of what ended up being a Class B misdemeanor charge for disorderly conduct. I am permanently banned. So because of this permanent ban, this also affects not just me, but my organizations. I can no longer process donations to my organizations. And not to mention the fact that also my donor portals to my organizations also banned me. And I was, for my organizations, I was using MailChimp as my email service. I got banned from MailChimp. So I've now lost my ability to process donations. I've lost my ability to email any of my donors and tell them that this has happened. I've lost my email service. I've lost my event ticket because Walkaway, we did events for years. My event ticketing service banned me. My accountant quit. My lawyer quit. I mean, it's like literally my life is collapsing around me, every aspect. And I am being treated like a terrorist, like literally like a terrorist, like somebody who killed a bunch of kids in a school or, planted a bomb somewhere or something, over standing on the steps of the Capitol for 8 minutes and filming and then a misdemeanor for disorderly conduct. So I want you to understand that, like, this is far beyond just what I went through criminally. To this day, I still have like an anxiety disorder about opening my mailbox, or if my phone rings and I don't know the number, or God forbid somebody knock on my door and I'm not expecting somebody. It's going to take me probably years to get, because it got to like every time I opened my mailbox, there was like, it was something new. You're banned from this. You're banned from that. You're no longer allowed this. You're restricted from this. The government is preventing you from being able to. I mean, it was just insane, and it would not stop. And then in the month of September, about 9 or 10 months after I got arrested, I got served. I got a knock on my door, and I opened the door, and somebody hands me a stack of papers this thick that I am being sued by 8 Capitol police officers who are suing me under the KKK Act, saying that I violated their civil rights as people of color and engaged in a racially biased attack on them. And they're suing me. And in this lawsuit, and again, go here and watch my video. In the lawsuit against me, they claim that I violently breached barricades to enter the Capitol grounds and proceeded to attack police officers, including the plaintiffs. And I'm still going through that. I'm still named in this civil case.
Brent, I didn't know this. I didn't know this was where we'd be going. And flabbergasted is not the word. I want to ask the legal questions. I might just have to cover this, the proceedings, if I can get a copy of them. They're public, I presume. Have you made a motion to dismiss on the basis that it's patently frivolous on its face?
Yes. Oh, you're a lawyer, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot. We should talk more offline after this is over. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, we have filed a motion to dismiss, and that is where we are right now. So
Okay.
but I have to tell you, I mean, you're probably a normal and logical person. You would say, well, this case can't possibly go anywhere. This is preposterous.
I'm a normal and logical person. I want to know who encouraged these police officers to take the lawsuit in the first place. I'd like
to tell you exactly who. It's a group called, and look up their website. You'll learn everything you need to know if you look at their website. It's called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. That's what they're called. Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. It's like a social justice law firm that I guarantee you is funded by the Democrat Party.
Civil rights violation for the Brandon, unless there's a video that I didn't see. I saw the 8-minute and 37-second video on a YouTube channel where I believe you show your face at 6 minutes and 32 seconds, where you turn it around, you're wearing a mask or a face mask. Sweet, merciful goodness. I didn't know this, and I've learned something new, and I'd like to see a copy of the motion to dismiss. I can break it down.
Yes, and let me tell you this. If anything that they were alleging was true, if I violently breached barricades or proceeded to attack officers, even if it wasn't on my video, do you honestly believe the DOJ would have let that go? I mean, do you honestly think just a misdemeanor for disorderly conduct will do on a January 6th violence against police officers? Like, are you kidding? I'd be sitting in the DC gulag right now if I had done any of those things. But it scares the hell out of me, because the judge in this case who's going to be deciding, he's also sentencing a lot of these January 6th criminal cases. And he has openly said repeatedly in these criminal cases that Trump Trump incited an insurrection, and that these Trump supporters were violent insurrectionists. Like, this is the person who's deciding if my case is going to get dismissed or not. And I mean, this is.
I mean, I'm reluctant to ask the name of the judge because even things can be weaponized. I'll ask afterwards, and then I'll just see, because I know that we've seen a number of the judges come up in a number of the cases. There's one judge who seems to be a little more skeptical of all of this. The one who acquitted the individual who he recognized the police said come on in, and says you can't arrest him now. You can't convict somebody who went into the Capitol after police overtly let him in. Okay. I'm gonna look at that. I have to see that. Okay, so I mean, what else, Brandon? So other than that, how was the theater, Brandon?
No. I mean, it's been horrible. I mean, it's been a nightmare. And I mean, the thing that's made everything so much worse is that there was just stone silence from the conservative side of the aisle. I mean, I appeared on the Fox News network way more than 75 times between 2018, 2019, and 2020. And this was just like, it was like I didn't even exist. I mean, it was just, and that was a huge part of me making the decision to take the plea and everything else, because I thought, I'm alone. Like, I am absolutely alone. Like, this, all the work that I did, everything I did to stand up and fight for President Trump, to fight for the Republican Party, to bring hundreds of thousands of new voters over to the Republican side, it means nothing. It means nothing to these people. Like, no one cares. And it was very clear to me that I was alone. And so that was hugely influential in me making the decision to plea. And then after 5 continuances, which was an absolute nightmare. And why don't I just take I mean, as long as we're getting into everything, the month of December is when I think that they did the worst thing to me that they did. And my attorney said to me that he believed that they did this because they were experiencing buyer's remorse, because he said, I think that they believed that by dragging your case out for as long as they did, knowing that you were being, because I quit tweeting, I quit posting. I didn't post a thing on social media for an entire year because I knew that anything I said could and would be used against me. And so we got to the month of December, which is now almost an entire year after they arrested me, and my sentencing was just weeks away. And my attorney said, I think that they realized that they did not destroy you or your following or your career or walk away the way that they had hoped that they would, and that's why they did this. But in the month of December, they dropped a document to the court, which they accidentally forgot to seal. Yes.
Hold on. In the civil case or in the criminal prosecution?
Criminal case. Nothing has happened in the civil case yet. We've only filed a motion to appeal. There's been no hearing, nothing. So nothing has really transpired in the civil case. So this is the criminal case. They were just a few weeks out from my sentencing, and they dropped a document to the court saying that they wanted an extension to another. This would be like the 5th or 6th extension of my case, that they wanted another one. And they said they wanted it because they said they wanted to talk to me again, because they said that they expected that I might turn over information that would result in a change to my sentencing recommendation. Well, within like 5 minutes of them saying that, and of course making it public, it became like a worldwide scandal where all of these stories started coming out that Trump ally Brandon Straka is expected to turn over significant information about January 6th that could result in a change to my sentencing recommendation. It got so out of hand so fast. I mean, people were speculating that I was going to turn over information about Trump and Trump insiders. One source was saying that I was turning over the names of donors. And I mean, it was just... And I just said to my attorney, what the hell is going on? And I said, we have to address this. Like, we have to put out a statement. And he was like, not until after your sentencing, not until after your... And I was just like, this is a nightmare. And I can honestly say, I was so strong through all of this, through the entire year. But that was the moment that I started having thoughts of just like ending my life. Because I was like, I'm never going to be able to come back from this. Like, they knew that I would be able to come back from everything that they had done up until that point. But they did that so that they would just finish me off, just end me over this stupid lie of this entire day and this entire stupid story. And it was really bad for about a week. And then I put out an email where I just said to people, I'm sure you guys have read this. I was like, I can't address it right now, but I am going to address it. It is not true. And then my people just started coming around to me and saying, like, we know what's going on and we have your back. Don't worry about this. Do what you have to do. We're not going anywhere. I could almost cry right now. I just like, but they were like, we know what's going on. Don't worry about it. You know, there might have been like 5 or 6 people that were like, I used to trust you and I'll never trust you again. But it was so, I mean, I went into a depression so bad for about 2 weeks that just like, I didn't think I was going to recover from it. And then anyway, I finally got to my sentencing. And in my sentencing, I told the judge everything I had gone through. I told her about the terrorism watch list. I told her about being banned from all my email sources and the PayPal and Venmo and Stripe. And I told her about losing donors, and I told her about the damage to my reputation. And I told her, I just said, this is so much for a misdemeanor charge. This is just way too much for a disorderly conduct misdemeanor. And she was not moved in the slightest by any of it. And she told me essentially that I needed to be taught a lesson for being a conservative influencer who would, you know, go to an event like this where things got out of hand and encourage the crowd and all this stuff. And so she gave me 3 months of house arrest, 3 years of probation, 60 hours of community service, the maximum fine allowable of $5,000. I was ordered to pay $500 restitution to the Capitol, even though it was acknowledged that I didn't engage in any violence or vandalism or destruction to the Capitol. And I got court-ordered mental health service. Like, I had to see a court-ordered therapist. And so for 3 months, starting then, I had to put an ankle monitor on, and I wasn't allowed to leave my house for 3 months. And as of now, I have completed every piece of my sentencing with the remainder of 2 years and 8 months more probation.
House arrest. Are you in an apartment or are you in a house?
Apartment. Same apartment they came. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, they came and got me in a different apartment, and then I was ordered to leave that apartment. I had to find a new place to live, and so no, they came to I was in my apartment for 3 months.
But what does that mean? Are you allowed to go outside and go for jogs?
No, you cannot leave. You cannot step outside of the door.
How do you get food? I mean, groceries?
Delivery. Everything was delivered.
3 months, Brandon? I'm sorry, 3 months. You can't leave how big is the apartment? 1,200 square feet?
Not big. I mean, it was like, I was trying to be cool because after my sentencing, I started going back on social media and posting again and talking again. And I didn't want my followers to think I was like, you know, having a breakdown or something. But I mean, it was horrible. I mean, because you have to understand, you're taking a person whose life has just been brutalized for an entire year. I'm traumatized. I have been raided. I have been jailed. I have had my organization ripped apart, my name ripped apart. If you Google my name now, it's just 25 pages of terrorist, insurrectionist, rioter, all of the amazing work that I did for Walkaway for 3 years. You can't even find it anymore. It's like it didn't even exist. And now you're taking a person in that mental state and telling them that they have to sit by themselves for 3 months in an apartment with a monitor on their ankle that, you know, only the federal government can track you. And so it's just psychological torture. I mean, that's all these people care about. I mean, what lesson does that teach somebody? Like that? Well, you know, we're going to make you not able to leave your home for 3 months, and that'll teach you not to, you know, go to a protest and stand on the what's the lesson?
I mean, look, there's two cynical ways of looking at this. One is, obviously, this is pure political persecution. Make an example of you, not just for you, but for anyone else who's hearing this. And the second, this is how you turn a non-criminal into a criminal. This is how you
right. No, I mean 100%. And look, I'm not going to say. I can tell you that yeah, I mean, it has been instilled in me now, feelings of paranoia and anger and resentment, and I mean all of those things. I mean, you're right. I mean, look, no, I don't have a compulsion to go out and commit more crimes or commit crimes,
I would just
period.
say commit crimes because I'm not convinced from anyhow.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. But I'm just saying that, yeah, you can actually abuse power to the point where you drive somebody to a state of becoming what you accused them of in the first place, which was never true. I think you can make somebody a terrorist. I think you can make somebody an insurrectionist by abusing them to the point where I mean, an individual who is being just absolutely bullied and abused by the power, the full might of the federal government. It's a really sick thing.
How did you get sunlight while you're in your apartment for 3 months?
I didn't. I have it's not a big apartment, and it's a weird apartment. It's 2 bedrooms, but there's only windows on one side. So I only have windows facing the street, and they're small windows. So I mean, I would sometimes go open the window and just lean out, but
How did you get exercise for 3 months?
I bought a treadmill.
Okay.
So I did run on my treadmill.
And did you did you start drinking? Did you start doing any sort of mind altering? You didn't fall back into that.
No, I won't let them have that. But I will tell you, it's the closest I've gotten in 7.5 years, because the pain is just so intense, and the injustice is just so intense. I mean, when you build something, as I did, that just it's amazing. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's amazing what I did. It's amazing. And when somebody comes and just stomps on it, and over a complete and total lie, and then you see that people are celebrating. I see people in the comments right now celebrating that this happened to me. And and I can tell you, let me tell you this. I feel the same way about Black Lives Matter and Antifa as these people feel about January 6 people, my political opponents. And I can tell you, if the Donald Trump DOJ was doing to Black Lives Matter people or Antifa people what the Joe Biden DOJ is doing to J6ers, I would not be okay with it. And I would not be celebrating it. I don't care if you're an anarchist who loves the Democratic Party. If you were standing at a protest filming a video of other people doing things that maybe they shouldn't have been doing, but if you were standing there filming a video for 8 minutes and you got FBI rounded and raided and taken to jail and banned from being able to send and receive funds and being able to travel and I would say this is insane. This is not okay. And so I for anyone who's celebrating just because that's how much you hate Donald Trump or you hate people who voted for Donald Trump, get a life and get a brain. Because if you think that this can't happen to you just because you go and vote for anybody who has Democrat next to their name, once anything like this is normalized in this country, we're all fair game. So stop being so stupid.
No, I think the people. There's some people who are just genuine trolls. They think it's edgy, funny. You can say things. There's other people who genuinely relish in it. And I've got to tell you something. Bona fide, convicted. The big T rhymes with schmerrists. Should not. Good people stood up against Guantanamo Bay. Good people stood up against waterboarding. This is humans. Even criminal humans deserve a certain amount of humanity. I had no idea it was this bad, Brandon. I thought it was, just your plea. The 3 months house arrest, I thought you could go out and go grocery shopping and leave and you had to stay within a vicinity. Man, okay.
Actually, okay, let me correct that then, because you just reminded me. So what happens, I actually forgot this. What happens is after you're on house arrest for 2 weeks, then you begin banking 4 hours a week. So what happens is you can take your 4 hours in 2 sessions. You can either take 1 4-hour session a week, or you can take 2 2-hour sessions a week. And that's when you're allowed to get gas or go to the grocery store or things like that. But I mean, I did basically order Instacart and stuff, but I had actually forgotten about that. Every week you're allowed, after the first 2 weeks, you're allowed 4 hours a week to like run errands, get your hair cut, things like that.
Oh, God bless. I love Big Brother. Thank them for their generosity.
Yes. Well, I want to be honest. I didn't want to, because I was like, oh, I actually forgot that was a
No,
thing.
first of all, I mean, it's also entirely understandable that in this ordeal of psychological, emotional, financial stress, it becomes a haze. It becomes a blur. I mean, I can't. 2 weeks. First of all, 2 weeks when we had the Rona and we had to, couldn't go. We could be in the country and I'd go out and jog because I wouldn't come into contact with people. This is absolute torture. Nothing less, probably more. And now there's a child who's come down here who doesn't seem to be in bed yet for no good reason. For no good reason. Oh, he slept in the car while he was driving today, so that might explain it. Brandon, I think we still have more to talk about, and maybe we can do a 2.0.
Sure.
What are you up to now? Like, so we need a silver lining to this. I don't want to, because the psychological trauma, it's going to last. Anyone who calls you a baby just has no idea.
No.
I once upon a time in the practice of law had a difficult client, and I'm understating it, and it left lingering trauma. Every time I saw a vehicle of a certain make, my heart would stop. What you've gone through is exponentially worse. It's I don't think anyone in the chat, anyone watching this, had the slightest idea. Mom's watching it. Okay, now my wife knows as well. It's beyond comprehension. I mean, I don't want to fabricate a silver lining, and it's not true that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Sometimes it actually it can break you and it can traumatize you as a human.
Yes.
How have you come through this on a personal human level, and what are you up to these days?
Well, to your point, I'd like to let people know, in case they don't know, that there's another defendant named Matthew Perna, who I believe was only charged with misdemeanors, who ended up taking his own life because he just couldn't handle how bad this is. And I don't know him. I never knew him, but I'm willing to say it's not because he's weak or because it's because that's how bad this has been. I'm moving on. I'm moving forward. So, my organization is still alive and well. I was very blessed that I didn't have to let any of my employees go or shut down operations or anything. I mean, that's a result of the fact that we were very financially cautious and put a good amount of money aside to get through something like this. But Walkaway, we just did our first live event in a year and a half in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, which was great. This coming Saturday, I'm going to be in Arizona. So if anybody is in the Arizona area, please come out and see me. I'm actually doing a Walkaway event with Carrie Lake, who's running for governor of Arizona, and she's amazing. I mean, she's really amazing. So, I mean, if you want to come out and just like meet me, shake my hand, give me a hug, take a picture, hear me speak. If you're anywhere in Arizona, please go to walkawaycampaign.com, and there's tickets. Tickets are only $35. I mean, it's not a big deal. Please come out and support, because it'll mean a lot to me and my team, and you'll see how great Walkaway events are, because they're awesome. And go to our website, search around on our website. Like I said, look at all the cool stuff we're doing. I think you'll be really inspired and really moved and surprised by how much we've done. We're going to be launching our own social platform in the coming months that we're calling Walkaway Social. And this is designed to replace the Facebook group that Facebook banned after January 6th, which had the 510,000 people and growing who had told their video and written testimonials, this beautiful, amazing community. This is not something to replace Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. It's literally just for Walkaway, and it's going to be a testimonial community where you can create a profile and chat with each other and engage just like you do on Facebook, but it's not going to be open source where you go on and you create a profile and post pictures of your kids and your dinner and your dog, and it's just about Walkaway. So we're going to be launching that in the coming months, which I think is going to be a political game changer, and I think it's going to be really exciting and really, really cool. And so that, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of coming back from this, and I guess to answer your question, like about me, it's going to be a process. I mean, it's going to be a process, and it's going to take time, because every time I think I'm out of it, I have another day or two that's just horrible, where I can't stop thinking about everything that I've lost and how bad it was and how betrayed I feel and how alone I have felt and how angry I feel that people on my side of the aisle didn't stand up for me, and that people in positions of power on my side of the aisle don't seem to care that this happened. And then I come out of it again, and then I feel good, and then it goes back, and it's just going to take time. It's going to take time, but I can tell you that I'm going to win in the end, and I'm going to come out of this better and stronger and smarter and more powerful, I think, than I was before. But I think it's just going to take time to get there.
And speaking of which, Super Chat says, Brandon, is it true that Elon Musk donated to your movement? He got
No.
red pill big time?
I wish that was true. No. Please do, Elon. And
hey, people
and everyone watching,
snip and share, and maybe Elon will donate to the campaign. Yeah, and you know the funny thing is, like, I can't imagine that you could have. I hope that you've come out, even financially speaking, on the winning end. But there's not enough money on earth that can compensate someone for what you've gone through, from what you've described. And I had no idea it was as bad as atrocious. Atrocious is the word.
No, and I mean, I don't really know how I would come out on the winning end. I mean, I still have, so I can tell you that I spent well into six figures on my criminal case. So I would estimate that I spent $120,000 on my criminal case so I just want to swear so badly, on a misdemeanor case, that much, and then that prompted the civil case, which I've already spent $50,000 more. Oh my God!
In the blink of an eye, you spend it. I mean, I know how it works.
Oh my God! Well, because they write the motion to dismiss, which they have to do all the research for, and that takes a long time and it's expensive. And then the other side says, "Oh, well, we're going to amend our complaint based off of your motion to dismiss." Mm-hmm. Then you have to write a new motion to dismiss. Who is this darling person?
This is my number 3, who should be in bed, but he's not. Although his hair smells good. Okay, get out of here. Go. His hair smells good.
No, he can stay.
Okay, come. Let's see. You're gonna talk some law.
Yeah, we all kind of have the same hair.
Yeah, I don't know where he gets the blonde hair from, Marion.
That texture, that is what my hair looks like if I grow it and I don't like, you've seen me with longer hair, but it's like I blow dry it really smooth and straight. But if I don't do that, it is literally exactly like yours. That's exactly what my hair is like.
Yeah, and my hair used to be much lighter when I was a kid. Then it gets dark, and then it turns gray, and thus is the circle of life.
Because you get older.
Because you get older.
Well, and that's honestly, I think I've been so traumatized and like dragged, through it, that I too, like, my hair's getting very gray on the side.
Oh, well, you're still looking good, but there's no question, Brandon. It's.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put your links are going to be posted up. Brandon, we're going to stick around and talk for a few minutes after this. Everybody, you know what to do. I mean, there's still more. So Brandon, you're going to have to come back on, and we're going to carry on with version 2.0.
Can I tell everybody?
Oh, go for
it. Can I tell everybody just a couple of ththings real quick?
Please, because I was going to ask you if there's anything I forgot to ask you or didn't get around that you want to say. Now,
just that would help. That would help. So, the first thing is, if you're in Arizona, please go to walkawaycampaign.com and get tickets to come see us this Saturday at my Arizona event. Like, please do that, because you'll love it. It's going to be amazing. The other thing I would say is, please follow me on all my social platforms. And I mean, like, literally, it takes 2 minutes. Just literally follow me on all my social platforms. And the way to do it is go to my website, brandonstraka.com. I've got them all just sitting right there on my homepage. If you try to go to Twitter, they've given me what's called a search ban, so you can type in my entire name and it won't pop up. So the easiest way, just literally go to my website and click the Twitter link, and then just follow. Please follow me: Twitter, Facebook, Getter, Truth Social, YouTube. I'm on YouTube. And please join my email list, which you can also get on at brandonstraka.com. Just sign up for it, and then you have to either go into your inbox or your spam, and you'll have an email from me. Open it, click confirm, and then you'll be signed up. That's the best thing you can do, so I can send you, and I only send emails once, twice a week. I'm not crazy. And if anybody wants to help with a legal defense fund, it's also there on my website, brandonstrock.com. So that's my thing. Follow me on socials, join my email list. And if you're able to make a contribution to my legal defense fund, please consider it at brandonstrock.com. And come see me in Arizona on Saturday.
And for anybody who was watching yesterday, and I was deciding what movie to watch with my oldest kid. We didn't go with Trainspotting. I erred on the side of caution, and I adhered to the good advice of the chat. And we watched a couple of we watched a couple of episodes of Better Call Saul, which I think is more age appropriate.
It isn't violent.
No, it's not. Better Call Saul has its moments.
No, I watched it once.
Oh, jeez, get out of here! Get out of here! He thinks he's like, okay, Brandon, we're going to be in touch, but you stick around. We're going to say our proper goodbyes afterwards. Everyone in the chat, clip, snip, share, especially the bit about Elon. Get Elon's attention on this because, like the person said, Elon has been thoroughly red-pilled, and I mean. Your story tonight is bordering on the black pill for me, but I'm going to take your survival of this as the white, silver lining white pill part. But
yeah, and guys, get on Twitter or whatever else and tag Joe Rogan because I really want to get my story to Joe Rogan because I think that's the best way to make sure everyone hears this. Like I don't know him, I don't have a connection to him, but I would love to be able to sit down with him and tell him this. I think.
Hold on a second. I will not often use children as props. Do you know who Joe Rogan is?
No.
Okay. This is the moment. This is how Twitter works, people. If this snippet tweet gets 1,000 retweets, Joe Rogan is contractually obliged to have Brandon Strock on the show.
That's how it works.
That's how the internet works, people.
It's a law.
Let's see if we can do it. Brandon, stick around. So people say Michael Malice. We'll message Malice as well. But yeah, I had no idea it was quite as bad. 3 hours, and I still feel like I have questions to ask you.
Yeah, we can do it again.
We'll do it again. Okay, everyone in the chat, thank you all very much. You know what to do. Share, snippet, support. Go check out Brandon. I'll see you all tomorrow. But Brandon, stick around, and we will talk for a few more minutes. Everyone else, hold on. I can't end this.
Good night, guys.
Good night, people.